The desert holds its breath at night. Beneath a sky scattered with cold stars, the Great Sphinx of Giza stands alone. Its colossal body half-merged with the ancient sands, its silent face turned eternally eastward, toward the horizon where the sun is destined to rise. For over 4,500 years, perhaps even longer, this immense creature of stone has watched the world change. Empires have risen and vanished. The Nile has shifted its course. Winds have erased cities from memory. And yet the Sphinx remains, not merely a monument, but a witness, a keeper of secrets that stretch beyond history itself. To gaze upon it is to feel something more than curiosity. It is to sense an intelligence that transcends time. The lion's body, carved from the bedrock of the plateau, exudes a primal strength. The human face, serene and impassive, bears the wisdom of eternity. Together they form a riddle in flesh and stone, the eternal question of man's relationship with the divine, carved into silence. Even the ancients found it old. When the earliest pharaohs built their pyramids nearby, the Sphinx was already buried up to its neck in sand. Kings ordered their workers to clear it, to restore it, to honor it, as though they knew it guarded something essential, something sacred, something the world must not forget. But what that was, no one could say. To the priests of Heliopolis, it was the image of the sun god Erosion, the horizon lord, symbol of cosmic rebirth. To others, it was a guardian protecting the necropolis of Giza. And to the few who dared whisper otherwise, it was older still, a relic of an age before Egypt, when God still walked among men. The Sphinx's face has been battered by time, its nose long gone, its beard broken, its body scarred by centuries of storms. Yet even in ruin, it radiates a stillness that humbles anyone who stands before it. Tourists may come and go, cameras clicking, but when the crowds thin and the desert wind begins to sing, the monument reclaims its power. There, in that silence, one begins to feel the pulse of something far older than human memory, the pulse of an idea, carved not only in stone, but in the collective imagination of our species. No inscription explains its purpose. No text tells us when it was built. Ancient Egyptian records, so meticulous in other matters, are strangely silent about it. This absence of words is not merely a gap in the historical record. It is a void that draws in every seeker, every dreamer, every archaeologist who has stood beneath that unblinking gaze and wondered what truths lie buried beneath its paws. The Sphinx does not answer. It only watches. Centuries ago, when Napoleon's troops marched into Egypt, they camped near this monument. Some of them carved their initials into its stone. Others, gazing up at its massive head, swore they could feel it watching them. One French soldier wrote that it was as if the desert itself had a soul, and this was its face. Long before and long after, travelers from every age, Greek historians, Arab chroniclers, Victorian adventurers, have come to stand before it and feel that same unease, that same reverence. It is the oldest question in architecture. Why was this made? The Sphinx's gaze is fixed toward the dawn, as if waiting for something to return, perhaps the first light of creation, or the souls of those who built it. Every morning, the rising sun crowns its head with fire, and for a brief moment, the stone seems alive again. It's as though the monument awakens each day, remembering who it once was, before the heat of noon and the erosion of time reclaim its stillness. It is not simply an artifact. It is a participant in the cosmic rhythm of birth, death, and renewal. The winds of the Sahara whisper over its eroded surface like ancient voices. Archaeologists have measured, photographed, excavated, and debated every inch of it, but the more they study, the less certain they become. The monument resists simplicity. It does not fit neatly into any timeline. It is both art and enigma, science and spirit, a riddle no equation can solve. Some say the erosion marks are from millennia of wind and sand. Others see the telltale signs of rain. Rain that has not touched this plateau for thousands of years, when the land was green and fertile and human civilization was barely a dream. There is something almost human in its endurance. Like us, the Sphinx has suffered, desecrated, buried, and forgotten, only to be rediscovered, restored, and misunderstood again. The first modern excavation in the 19th century revealed its full body for the first time in thousands of years. Imagine the moment when the sand fell away and the full form emerged. The paws stretching 40 meters, the flanks of the lion carved straight into the living rock. The workers must have felt awe and fear in equal measure. It was as if a sleeping god had been disturbed. The Sphinx has seen the ages unfold like a vast dream. It watched the pharaohs raise their pyramids, the Persians march through its shadows, the Greeks rename its gods, the Romans quarry its stones, and the Arabs whisper prayers in its presence. Each era added a layer of myth, and each myth tried to explain what it was never meant to explain. Some saw it as an oracle, others a demon. In truth, perhaps it is neither. Perhaps it is a mirror, reflecting not the secrets of the past, but the eternal question of who we are. When you stand before the Sphinx, time feels strange. The horizon trembles with heat. The wind carries voices you cannot quite hear. For a fleeting moment, you feel as though you too are part of its vigil. Another watcher, bound by curiosity and mortality, trying to read eternity in a face of stone. That is the power of the Sphinx. Not just to remind us of the past, but to confront us with the mystery of existence itself. It has waited patiently for thousands of years, surviving storms, invasions, and the erasure of its own story. Yet the question endures, more alive than ever. Who carved this face? What did they mean it to say? And what truth, buried beneath the sands of Egypt, was so profound that it had to be guarded by silence itself? Under the burning Egyptian sun, the Sphinx slumbered in silence, half consumed by the desert that had birthed it. For centuries, it lay hidden beneath a sea of golden dust, its massive form reduced to a rumor among the Bedouin tribes who camped nearby. To them, it was a spirit of the sands, a jinn perhaps, or a god turned to stone. Children whispered that, when the wind blew from the west, the Sphinx sighed. No one dared dig too deep, for fear of disturbing what slept beneath. But the 19th century was an age of rediscovery, of men who believed that the past was theirs to claim, and soon the silence of the Sphinx would be broken once more. It began with curiosity, and with greed. In 1817, Giovanni Battista Caviglia, an Italian explorer with the restless heart of a treasure hunter, stood before the Sphinx for the first time. Only its head and the upper curve of its back were visible, jutting out from the dunes like the tip of an iceberg. The rest of its body was buried so deep that locals believed it extended all the way into the underworld. Caviglia, armed with shovels, pickaxes, and a small army of diggers, set out to uncover what lay beneath. Day after day, his men dug into the scorching sand, heaving away centuries of wind-blown time. The work was brutal. The desert seemed to resist them, swallowing every trench they dug. After months of back-breaking labor, they exposed part of the Sphinx's chest and one of its immense paws, just enough to glimpse the scale of the creature that slumbered below. But exhaustion and lack of funds forced him to stop. The Sphinx was not ready to surrender itself. Years later, in 1853, another explorer arrived, Auguste Mariette, the French archaeologist who would later found the Egyptian Antiquities Service. Mariette continued the excavation where Caviglia had failed, peeling back the sand layer by layer until the Sphinx's massive form emerged in the blinding sun. He found that the statue's body stretched 45 meters long, carved entirely from the living limestone bedrock. Between its forepaws, he uncovered a granite stele, a monument placed there more than 1,000 years after the Sphinx was built. Its inscription told the story of a prince, Thutmose IV, who fell asleep in the shadow of the buried Sphinx and dreamed that the great creature spoke to him. In the dream, the Sphinx promised the young prince the throne of Egypt, if only he would free it from the suffocating sands. Thutmose kept his promise, and the dream stele, as it came to be called, was his eternal record of that divine encounter. But even this discovery deepened the mystery. The stele spoke of the Sphinx as though it were already ancient in Thutmose's time, and his reign was in the 15th century BCE, long after the pyramids were built. So who, then, had created the Sphinx in the first place? And why did the Egyptians, meticulous record keepers of their civilization, leave no definitive mention of its origin? Every answer opened a door to a deeper riddle. By the late 1800s, Egypt had become the stage of a new kind of conquest. The explorers of Europe, armed not with swords, but with maps and notebooks, descended upon the Nile Valley with an insatiable hunger for discovery. To them, the sands of Egypt were not sacred, but silent witnesses to glory waiting to be uncovered. Some came in the name of science. Others came for fame or fortune. The Sphinx, looming above the desert like a living riddle, became the symbol of everything they sought: mystery, beauty, and power. When the French expedition under Napoleon had arrived decades earlier, the Sphinx was still half buried. The scholars who accompanied the army, the savants of the Enlightenment, measured and sketched every curve of its face. They were the first to record it with precision, producing engravings that would captivate Europe. To the public back home, the Sphinx was no longer a myth. It was real, and it belonged to the world's imagination now, not just to Egypt's sands. But in those early days of archaeology, wonder was often mixed with arrogance. The Europeans who studied Egypt saw themselves not as guests, but as heirs reclaiming a forgotten legacy. They lifted artifacts from tombs, shipped mummies across oceans, and treated the monuments as puzzles meant to be solved by Western minds. They marveled at the Sphinx's scale but dismissed the possibility that the Egyptians themselves had created such perfection without external influence. Some even speculated that it must have been carved by survivors of Atlantis, or by a vanished race more ancient than Egypt itself. The Sphinx had become a mirror, reflecting not the truth of its builders, but the ambitions and fantasies of those who studied it. Yet beneath their theories, the Sphinx remained what it had always been: silent, unyielding, and inscrutable. The wind howled through its broken nostrils, carrying sand that continued to gather at its base as if the desert were trying once more to reclaim it. It was a battle between time and human will, the same battle that defines every civilization. In 1925, another wave of excavations began under Émile Barrès, a French engineer working for the Egyptian government. His team spent 11 years freeing the Sphinx completely from the sand, exposing the immense limestone enclosure around it, a quarry-like pit that seemed to have been carved out just to create the monument itself. The scale of the work stunned even the most skeptical scholars. Whoever had built this creature had possessed both monumental ambition and an understanding of stone unmatched in the ancient world. But when Barrès stood before the newly liberated Sphinx, he faced the same unanswerable question that haunted Caviglia and Mariette. Why? There were no chambers inside, no inscriptions revealing purpose. The Sphinx offered no treasure, no tomb, no message. Simply was an idea made eternal. The locals called it Abu al-Hol, the father of terror, a name that spoke of awe rather than fear. For generations, they had told stories of its eyes that glowed at dusk, of spirits that walked between its paws. And though science dismissed these legends, they captured something archaeology could not: the sense that the Sphinx was alive in a way that defied explanation. By the dawn of the 20th century, the Sphinx had been photographed, measured, and mapped, yet remained as mysterious as ever. Scholars debated its age. Artists painted it as a symbol of beauty and melancholy. Poets wrote of its silence as though it concealed the memory of creation itself. The more the world uncovered, the deeper the mystery grew. Beneath the sand, the Sphinx had been hidden from humanity. But once uncovered, it hid something even greater: the truth about who we were before history began. The wind still moves across the Giza plateau in slow waves, carrying whispers of those first excavators. Men blinded by both sunlight and ambition. Their shovels disturbed more than dust. They awakened a question that still has not been answered. The Sphinx stands today as it did then, silent but aware, its face turned to the rising sun as if waiting for humanity to finally understand what it has been saying all along. For when the explorers brushed away the last grains of sand, they did not reveal the Sphinx's secret. They only uncovered their own reflection in its ancient gaze. The human face of the Sphinx is unlike any other in the ancient world. It stares forward with a composure that feels almost alive, its eyes fixed on the eternal sunrise, its lips pressed into a calm that defies the violence of time. Yet for all its serenity, The face is also damaged, eroded, incomplete. The nose is gone, the headdress chipped, and centuries of sandstorms have softened its once sharp features. Still, something unmistakably human lingers in that gaze, a quiet awareness that outlasts empires. The question that has haunted generations of scholars, artists, and dreamers alike is simple but impossible. Whose face is it? The mainstream Egyptological answer has long pointed to Pharaoh Khafre, the ruler of the 4th dynasty, builder of the Second Great Pyramid of Giza. His reign, around 2500 BCE, marked a period of immense architectural and cultural triumph. The Sphinx, according to this view, was carved in his likeness, a divine portrait blending the strength of a lion with the wisdom of a king. The monument would thus be an expression of royal power, Khafre as the living god, the earthly embodiment of Horus, watching over the necropolis where his pyramid and others rose like stairways to the heavens. It is a compelling theory, elegant and convenient, but the deeper one looks, the less certain it becomes. For one, the face of the Sphinx does not perfectly match the statues of Khafre found nearby. The proportions differ. The Sphinx's features are broader, its cheeks rounder, the mouth fuller, the shape of the jaw unlike that of the pharaoh's known likenesses. Some researchers argue that erosion and restoration might account for the differences. Others whisper that perhaps the Sphinx's face had been recarved at some point in antiquity, reshaped to reflect the image of a later ruler who sought to claim it as his own. If that were true, the Sphinx we see today might not be the same monument that first rose from the limestone thousands of years ago. Then there is the matter of the body itself, its immense lion form cut from a single mass of bedrock, its weathering patterns suggesting an age that could predate Khafre's reign entirely. The geological scars on the Sphinx tell a story of water, not wind, of rain that fell long before Egypt became a desert. To some, this is an unmistakable sign that the monument was carved during a time when the Giza Plateau was lush and green, possibly as far back as 7000 or 8000 BCE. If so, the Sphinx would not have been a royal commission at all, but a survivor from a forgotten chapter of human civilization. The debate over its age has become one of the most passionate controversies in modern archaeology. To question the accepted timeline is to challenge the foundations of Egyptian history itself. Yet the Sphinx seems to invite such rebellion. Its silence is not the silence of ignorance. It is the silence of something that knows but refuses to be easily understood. Each attempt to define it feels like an intrusion, as though the monument were guarding its secret not out of necessity, but out of wisdom. The missing nose, too, has become a story of its own. Some say it was destroyed by Napoleon's soldiers using the Sphinx for target practice, a tale now disproven, for sketches made long before Napoleon's time already show the nose gone. Others blame a Sufi zealot of the 14th century who, angered by the sight of an idol, struck the face with a hammer. Yet even if this were true, the act seems almost symbolic. Man's attempt to erase the divine reflection in stone, to blind the witness that has seen too much. The Sphinx, mutilated but unbowed, became a symbol of endurance against the arrogance of time and the folly of men. Beneath the surface of this enigma lies a deeper question. Why a human head at all? Lions had long represented strength and protection in Egyptian symbolism. To merge the lion's body with the human form was no accident. It spoke of unity between the physical and the spiritual, the mortal and the divine. The Sphinx, in essence, was not merely a guardian of tombs but a guardian of meaning, a bridge between worlds. The ancient Egyptians believed that stone itself could embody spirit, that the act of carving was not just artistic but sacred. In shaping the Sphinx, they were not merely sculpting rock. They were awakening something immortal. Over the centuries, the Sphinx's face has been painted, repaired, and reimagined countless times. Traces of pigment still cling to the limestone, red ochre on the skin, blue and yellow along the headdress. Once, it was not the pale ghost we know today but a living image, radiant with color, shining beneath the Egyptian sun. Imagine its gaze then. Vivid eyes outlined in black, staring toward the horizon as dawn broke over the Nile. It must have seemed to breathe. Even now, in the shifting light of early morning, the contours of the face seem to change. From one angle it is stern, almost severe. From another, it appears compassionate, even mournful. The Sphinx is not one face. It is every face that has ever sought eternity. Archaeologists have uncovered evidence that the Sphinx underwent restoration as early as 1400 BCE, long before Thutmose IV's dream stele. That means that even in ancient times, the monument was already ancient. Generations of Egyptians labored to preserve a structure whose origins they no longer fully understood. They patched its eroded surfaces with blocks of limestone, repaired its paws, and rebuilt parts of its headdress. Their inscriptions speak not of creation, but of reverence. They called it Sheshephank, the living image, a name that implies not a statue, but a presence. To stand before it today is to feel that presence still. The air vibrates faintly in the heat. The sand glitters like powdered glass. The Sphinx looms above, the horizon bending around its silhouette. Its eyes, though weathered, still seem to see. You can almost sense the weight of centuries pressing down, the breath of countless generations who stood where you stand and felt the same shiver of awe. The monument has become a conversation across time, an unbroken thread connecting the living and the dead. Perhaps that is the true riddle of the Sphinx. It is not asking us who carved it or when. It is asking what it means to endure, to hold memory in form, to speak without words, to wait through the turning of ages for someone who will finally understand. The face, whether it is Khafar's or that of a forgotten ancestor, is our own. Humanity staring back at itself from the deep silence of history. As the last light of the setting sun slips across its cheeks, shadows gather in the hollow of its eyes. The temperature drops, and the wind shifts. For a moment, it feels as if the Sphinx exhales, a sigh that carries the dust of millennia. The desert answers with silence. Night descends, and once more, the great face fades into shadow. Yet even in darkness, it watches, remembering all that has passed and all that is yet to come. In the age of Khafar, Egypt was the axis of the known world, a realm of order and divine design, where every sunrise reaffirmed the sacred balance between the heavens and the earth. The Nile flowed as the artery of life, its floodwaters both a blessing and a warning. Along its banks, the pharaoh ruled not as a man, but as a living god, a conduit between the mortal and the eternal. To the people of ancient Egypt, Khafar was not merely a ruler of men. He was the earthly vessel of Horus, the falcon-headed god of kingship, the embodiment of divine justice and cosmic order. His word was law because his soul was the law of the universe itself. To look upon him was to look upon the will of the gods. Khafar's reign, roughly 4,500 years ago, fell within the Old Kingdom, an era the Egyptians themselves called Zep Tepi. The first time, when gods still walked the earth and men sought to mirror their perfection in stone. It was during this golden age that the pyramids rose, monumental expressions of faith carved into geometry. The Great Pyramid of Khufu, Khafar's father, had already pierced the heavens by the time the young king took the throne. Yet Khafar was determined not to stand in his father's shadow. He would build his own pyramid slightly smaller but rising from higher ground so that, from a distance, it seemed taller. At its foot, he would commission temples of breathtaking precision. And between them, according to the conventional view, he would leave his mark upon eternity. The Great Sphinx. In this vision, the Sphinx was not a mystery, it was a statement. The lion's body represented the physical might of the pharaoh, the human head, his divine intelligence. Together, they formed an image of total dominion, both earthly and celestial. Facing east, the Sphinx would greet the rising sun each morning, as the pharaoh's own spirit rose with Ra to illuminate the world. This placement was no accident. The alignment with the solar path tied Khafar's legacy to the eternal rhythm of creation, the endless cycle of death and rebirth. The Sphinx, in this sense, was not just a monument but a machine for eternity, designed to bind the king's soul to the sun forever. Inside the valley temple nearby, archaeologists later discovered a diorite statue of Khafar seated on his throne. It is one of the finest sculptures of the ancient world. The king's posture perfectly balanced, his muscles strong yet serene, his eyes gazing into infinity. Behind his head, the falcon of Horus spreads its wings protectively, as though the god himself watches over the living image of his power. When one looks at that statue, it is easy to see why scholars connected it to the Sphinx. The same aura of stillness, the same fusion of majesty and mystery, radiates from both. To the builders of the Old Kingdom, such art was not imitation, it was incarnation. The Sphinx was Khafre, and Khafre was the Sphinx. Yet for all the grandeur of this interpretation, there are whispers in the stone that tell another story. The base of Khafre's causeway, leading from his pyramid to the valley, cuts through layers of bedrock that appear to have already been quarried, perhaps by those who carved the Sphinx itself. Could it be that the Sphinx was already there, ancient even to Khafre's architects, and that the pharaoh simply claimed it as his own? Some inscriptions seem to hint at this possibility, referring to the monument not as something newly created, but as something restored. If that is true, Khafre's Sphinx may not be a creation at all, but an inheritance, a sacred relic from a forgotten age, absorbed into his divine kingship. Still, in the official theology of his time, the Sphinx's symbolism would have been clear. It was the manifestation of Sekhem, the vital power that sustained the pharaoh's rule. The lion's crouched stance, ready yet still, reflected the balance of strength and restraint. Its forward gaze symbolized vigilance, a guardian not only of tombs but of truth itself. The Egyptians saw no separation between politics, spirituality, and art. All were aspects of Ma'at, the universal order. The Sphinx, monumental and unmoving, was the embodiment of Ma'at in stone. In its shadow, chaos had no dominion. The construction of Khafre's complex must have been a symphony of labor and faith. Thousands of workers, stonemasons, engineers, artisans, and priests, moved with a shared rhythm, guided by chants that echoed through the plateau. The scent of dust and sweat mingled with incense from nearby altars. The air shimmered with heat and devotion. Each block of limestone hauled into place was an act of worship, a gesture of belief that what they built would last forever. Perhaps, in some quiet moment, one of those workers looked up at the face of the Sphinx and wondered if it would remember them too. The Egyptians believed that names had power, that to speak a name was to give it life. Khafre's cartouche, carved into the walls of his temples, was a spell against oblivion. Every priest who uttered it in prayer ensured the king's eternal rebirth. The Sphinx, by extension, was a colossal version of that spell. It was not only carved to honor the living God, but to become him, a vessel for his eternal soul, the Ka. As long as the Sphinx endured, so would Khafre's essence. That was the logic of eternity in ancient Egypt. If you could anchor your soul in stone, death was only a doorway. And yet, standing before the Sphinx today, one feels something beyond the ambitions of a single king. There is a stillness there that transcends dynasties. Khafre's name, once spoken in every temple, has faded to an echo. His pyramid stands, but its purpose has shifted from holy monument to tourist backdrop. The priests who served him are dust, their prayers long forgotten. Only the Sphinx remains, silent, enduring, and still watching the same horizon. Perhaps this is the final irony. The monument meant to glorify a man has outlived his memory and become something greater. It no longer belongs to Khafre. It belongs to time itself. In the mythology of Egypt, the pharaoh's role was to maintain the cosmic order against the forces of chaos. Every dawn was a victory, every sunset a reminder of mortality. The Sphinx, facing the sunrise, embodies that endless struggle. Each morning, light returns to its gaze, and each evening, darkness tries to claim it again. In that rhythm lies the secret of all Egyptian art, the understanding that eternity is not the absence of change, but the balance of it. If the Sphinx was indeed Khafre's creation, then it was his most profound statement. That power fades, names crumble, but form, pure, enduring form, can defy death. To carve one's face into the earth itself is to become part of the world's memory, inseparable from its breath and dust. That is the paradox of kingship in ancient Egypt. Immortality achieved not through life, but through stillness. The desert night returns. The Sphinx rests in shadow, its features soft beneath the stars. Somewhere in that vast silence, perhaps Khafre still lives, not as a god or a ghost, but as a question carved into stone. His dream of divinity fulfilled not by worship, but by wonder. For in the end, what greater power can there be than to inspire awe long after your name has been forgotten? The Sphinx, whether his or not, keeps that dream alive. And as the horizon glows faintly before dawn, the ancient face seems almost to smile, as though it, too, remembers the king who sought eternity and found it. The sands of Giza shift like restless ghosts, burying and revealing the Sphinx in a slow dance that has lasted thousands of years. By the time of Thutmose IV, the sands had risen high enough to swallow almost the entire body of the great beast. Only its head and part of its shoulders still stared out at the desert sun, the rest entombed beneath waves of golden dust. Egypt had changed since the days of Khafre. Dynasties had come and gone, priests had risen and fallen, and new gods had taken prominence in the hearts of men. Yet the Sphinx remained, patient and silent, a relic of a forgotten age, half-buried, half-remembered. Thutmose was not yet pharaoh when he first encountered it. He was a young prince then, the son of Amenhotep II, one of many heirs vying for favor in a royal court full of intrigue and ambition. His place in the line of succession was uncertain. He was not the eldest nor the most politically favored. His future depended on omens, on signs from the gods. And so, seeking clarity, he wandered into the desert, away from the murmurs of the palace and the shadow of his father's rule. It was there, in the stillness of the Giza plateau, that he found the Sphinx. The ancient colossus rose before him like a mountain shaped by divine hands, its colossal face scarred by time and yet filled with a haunting vitality. Wind whispered through the hollows of its stone body, and the hot air shimmered like a veil of dreams. Exhausted from the heat and the weight of uncertainty, Thutmose lay down in the shade cast by the Sphinx's chin, the only cool place in the entire desert that afternoon. He closed his eyes. What happened next would change not only his destiny but the fate of the monument itself. According to the inscription carved later between the Sphinx's paws, the famed dream stele, Thutmose fell into a deep sleep. In that sleep, the Sphinx spoke. It was not merely a statue. It was the living form of a god, Horem-Ake, Horus of the horizon, the guardian of dawn and rebirth. The voice that came to him was both thunder and whisper, ancient as the wind and clear as the sun. "Look upon me," it said, "for I am your father, Horus. The sand has covered me, but I am suffocating beneath its weight. Free me, and I shall give you the crown of Egypt." When Thutmose awoke, the desert was silent again, but the words echoed within him like prophecy. He looked at the half-buried giant before him and saw no longer a ruin, but a promise. A bargain had been struck between man and God, carved not in stone but in spirit. If he would clear the sand and restore the Sphinx to its glory, the throne of Egypt would be his. He returned to Memphis a changed man. Those who knew him said he moved with new purpose, as if guided by something unseen. And, miraculously, his fortune began to shift. Within a few years, his rivals were gone, some fallen from favor, others dead. Thutmose ascended to the throne of Egypt, and true to his word, he began the great work of freeing the Sphinx from its sandy tomb. The dream stele he erected between its paws still stands today, a weathered tablet covered in hieroglyphs that tell the tale of divine intervention. On its surface, one can still see faint carvings of Thutmose offering incense to the Sphinx, kneeling before it like a humble servant before his god. For him, this was not just a monument. It was the proof of his destiny, the divine contract that legitimized his rule. To doubt the Sphinx was to doubt the will of the gods themselves. But the story of Thutmose and the dream stele is more than a royal legend. It is a glimpse into how ancient Egyptians understood the boundary between the human and the divine. In their world, dreams were not illusions of the mind. They were messages from the gods, channels through which the unseen world spoke to the living. To dream beneath the Sphinx, the eternal guardian of the horizon, was to step into that liminal space where day meets night, life meets death, and man meets the divine. It is tempting to dismiss Thutmose's vision as a political fable, a myth created to justify his unexpected rise to power. Yet even if it was propaganda, it tells us something profound about the psychology of Egypt's rulers. The pharaoh was not just a king. He was the bridge between heaven and earth. His legitimacy depended not on birth alone, but on divine approval. And in that sense, the Sphinx, silent, eternal, godlike, was the perfect giver of crowns. Modern scholars have analyzed the dream stele for centuries, trying to separate history from symbolism. Some believe the story masks a calculated restoration project, meant to align Thutmose's reign with the sacred legacy of the Old Kingdom. Others see in it a spiritual awakening, a young man confronting the ghosts of Egypt's past and rediscovering its ancient soul. Either way, the result was the same. The Sphinx was reborn. Once again, the sands were cleared, and its massive form rose from the desert like a resurrection. But the Sphinx never gives without cost. Though Thutmose's reign was prosperous, he died young. His son, Amenhotep III, and his grandson, the heretic Akhenaten, would push Egypt into a spiritual and political revolution that fractured its very core. It is as if the god of the horizon, once awakened, demanded balance, creation and destruction, revelation and loss. The dream that had promised power also carried a shadow. The image of Thutmose kneeling before the Sphinx is one of Egypt's most haunting symbols. A mortal humbled before eternity. It captures something eternal about humanity's relationship with mystery itself. The Sphinx does not speak often, but when it does, it offers both promise and peril. To listen is to risk being transformed. And yet, even now, the power of that vision endures. Archaeologists and mystics alike still debate what Thutmose truly saw that day. Was it the literal voice of a god, or the echo of his own destiny calling out from the depths of his subconscious? Was the Sphinx merely a symbol, or did something ancient truly stir within its stone heart? Stand before the Sphinx today as the sun climbs over the horizon, and you might understand why Thutmose believed. The light strikes its face with uncanny precision, its eyes catching the first glint of dawn as though awakening from sleep. The desert air hums faintly, and for a brief moment, it feels alive, as if some part of it remembers. The story of Thutmose IV is not just about one man's ascent to power. It is about humankind's eternal hunger for connection with the divine, for signs in the silence, for meaning carved into stone. The sands will always return, as they always have. But so will the dream that beneath the dust of time, something ancient waits to be seen, to be heard, to be understood. Perhaps that is the true lesson of Thutmose's vision, that even buried truths are never lost forever. They merely sleep, waiting for the right soul to awaken them. And so the Sphinx remains part god, part dream, and wholly eternal. Its silence is not emptiness, but listening. Its gaze is not fixed, but searching. And for those who dare to sleep beneath its shadow, as Thutmose once did, perhaps it still whispers in the language of the ancients. Free me, and I will reveal your destiny. For centuries, people stared at the Sphinx and wondered how such an immense creature of stone could have been born in an age before iron, before machines, before modern tools. To the untrained eye, it seemed impossible. A sculpture hundreds of feet long, perfectly aligned to the east, carved directly out of solid limestone bedrock. Legends grew around it like vines, that it was made by lost civilizations, or guided by celestial beings, or perhaps even shaped by gods themselves. Yet beneath the romantic mystery lies a quieter, more human story, one of vision, labor, and brilliance. It is a story of the hidden builders, the forgotten hands that gave the Sphinx its breath of eternity. Not far from the monument itself, in the shifting sands south of the plateau, archaeologists have uncovered what they call the workers' village. Rows of small stone dwellings, bakeries, tool shops, and even medical rooms lay buried there for thousands of years. This was not a camp of slaves, as once imagined. It was a city of craftsmen, engineers, and laborers, united by a common faith in the eternal order of Egypt. These were the people who turned divine dreams into tangible form. They were organized into crews called fills, each one with its own name, often humorous or boastful, the drunkards of Menkaure or the friends of Khafre. Their graffiti still survives on the blocks of the pyramids, silent signatures of pride and humanity. Every dawn, as the desert cooled from the night's embrace, these men and women would rise to the rhythm of chants and drums. Priests would offer incense to the rising sun, invoking Ra to bless the day's labor. Teams of workers would gather at the quarry face, their copper chisels gleaming faintly in the first light. The Sphinx was carved directly from a limestone ridge that had once been part of the plateau itself. As they removed the stone, the shape slowly emerged, first a wall of raw rock, then the outline of a head, the slope of shoulders, the curve of paws. What we now call art was, to them, ritual. Every strike of the chisel was a hymn to the gods of order, a defiance of chaos. The limestone of the Giza Plateau is layered, soft yellow at the top, harder white below. The builders understood this intimately. They used the stronger stone for the Sphinx's body and the softer for the upper parts, which tragically eroded faster over time. This decision was not a mistake but a necessity. The materials available dictated the form, as if nature itself participated in the design. Around the carving pit, vast mounds of rubble were cleared, and what was discarded became building material for the nearby temples. Every grain of stone had purpose. Nothing was wasted. Archaeologists have long debated how such a colossal structure could be created with Bronze Age tools. Yet, when experiments were conducted using replicas of those ancient copper chisels and wooden mallets, the results were astonishing. With enough manpower and patience, limestone yielded easily. Over months and years, the Sphinx took shape under the relentless Egyptian sun. The precision was not mechanical, it was devotional. These workers were guided by geometry, by the sacred mathematics that bound heaven to earth. The angle of each curve, the symmetry of the face, the alignment with the solar path, all reflected a cosmic blueprint. To the Egyptians, this geometry was not mere measurement. It was magic. They believed in Heka, the power of words and symbols to shape reality. To carve a perfect line was to invoke the perfection of Ma'at, the divine order of the universe. In that sense, the Sphinx was both an engineering project and a spiritual act. It was a prayer made solid, a chant in limestone. When the sculptors shaped the Sphinx's face, perhaps modeled after Khafre himself, they were not just capturing likeness. They were summoning the essence of divine kingship. The tools they used may seem primitive, but the organization behind them was anything but. Egypt's architects, called master builders, were mathematicians, astronomers, and priests all at once. They tracked the stars to align their monuments with celestial precision. They calculated the movement of shadows, the rising of Sirius, the tilt of the sun at solstice. The Sphinx's gaze toward the east was no coincidence. It faced the exact point where the sun rose on the spring and autumn equinoxes, moments when light and darkness are balanced. To stand before it at dawn in that perfect equilibrium was to witness the harmony of the cosmos made visible. And yet, for all their knowledge, there was something almost otherworldly about their achievement. The scale alone defies the imagination. The Sphinx stretches over 70 meters long and stands more than 20 meters high. The head itself is taller than a two-story house, the paws longer than a train car. To carve such proportions by eye, with no modern instruments, required not only skill but a profound sense of vision, an intuitive geometry that could only come from a lifetime immersed in pattern and proportion. Even more mysterious are the hidden traces of their work. Marks left behind in the quarry walls, tool impressions in the limestone blocks, and ancient pathways worn smooth by countless footsteps. In these humble details lies the truth that the Sphinx was not born from supernatural power, but from the human desire to reach beyond oneself. Each blow of the hammer, each breath taken under the desert heat, was a note in a symphony of endurance. It is easy to think of the Sphinx as the work of kings, but it is, in truth, the work of thousands of nameless souls. They lived, toiled, and died beneath its gaze, leaving behind no tombs, no monuments to themselves. Their immortality was absorbed into the stone they shaped. When the wind howls across the plateau, it is said to carry the echo of their songs, the rhythm of hammers, the whisper of prayers. And perhaps there was another kind of blueprint guiding them, not one written in papyrus scrolls or measured with cords, but one imprinted in the human spirit. the drive to create something that lasts beyond a single lifetime, to leave behind proof that they existed, that they could dream as gods do. In that sense, the Sphinx was not merely a symbol of divine power, but of human aspiration, the bridge between flesh and eternity. Modern engineers still marvel at how the ancient Egyptians managed the logistics of such an endeavor. The food, water, and shelter for thousands had to be supplied daily. Medical care for injuries, replacement of tools, transportation of materials, all required a level of organization that rivals small cities. But perhaps their greatest resource was faith. To work on the Sphinx was to participate in the creation of order itself, to give form to the idea that the universe could be made stable through devotion and will. When we look at the Sphinx today, we see the grandeur of kings. But beneath that grandeur lies something more profound, the echo of the human hand. The Sphinx endures not because of royal command, but because of the unity of purpose that once flowed through every laborer who stood beneath the sun and believed their work mattered. Their names may be lost, but their vision endures in every curve of stone. The irony is that the builders who made the Sphinx eternal vanished from memory long before the kings they served. Their graves, simple and unadorned, have been found near the site, bodies laid with care, often with bread and beer for the afterlife. These were not slaves. They were participants in a sacred enterprise. In their silence, the Sphinx speaks for them. Every weathered contour of its face is their legacy. If one stands before the monument at dusk, as shadows stretch across its body, it almost seems to breathe. The sunlight fades from its eyes, and the desert cools. For a moment, the line between creator and creation blurs. You can almost feel the presence of those ancient builders still there, tired, dust-covered, but smiling as they step back to look at what they have made, not knowing that they have built something that would outlast empires, religions, and even the language they spoke. In the end, the Sphinx is their secret victory, proof that even in the service of gods and kings, the truest act of creation belongs to the hands of the many, not the will of one. It is a monument not only to power, but to persistence, to the eternal heartbeat of human genius buried beneath the sands of time. The Sphinx is not simply a monument of stone. It is a sentence written in a language older than words, a code composed of geometry, myth, and silence. For thousands of years, people have stood before it and felt that there was meaning there, something profound yet just beyond comprehension. It gazes eternally toward the east, toward the light of the rising sun, as if guarding the secret of life's renewal. But what exactly does it say? What was it meant to tell those who first saw it? When its features were still sharp, its colors still vivid, its face gleaming with the sacred red and gold paint of the pharaoh's divine image. To the ancient Egyptians, every form had purpose. Symbolism was the very architecture of their world. A lion was not merely an animal. It was the essence of strength, guardianship, and solar power. The lion's body of the Sphinx represented the Earth's vitality, the raw, eternal force that defended order from chaos. Lions guarded the gates of temples and tombs, their presence a reminder that the divine realm was protected. But the human head placed upon this lion body transformed mere power into consciousness. It was the meeting of instinct and intellect, muscle and spirit, nature and reason. In the Sphinx, animal strength and divine wisdom coexisted in perfect balance, the living embodiment of Ma'at, the cosmic harmony that held the world together. This very pose carries meaning. The Sphinx does not move, yet it watches. It does not roar, yet it commands. The stillness is its strength. Egyptians understood silence as a sacred state, an expression of power restrained, of knowledge so vast it needed no words. The Sphinx is the guardian of thresholds, standing between the world of men and the domain of the gods, between life and the afterlife, between night and dawn. It does not protect treasure, it protects truth. And that truth in their eyes was eternal order itself. Look closely at its alignment. The Sphinx faces due east, directly toward the point where the sun rises on the equinox. This was not coincidence, it was cosmology. Each morning, the sun god Ra emerged from the underworld, sailing across the sky in his bark of light. The Sphinx, Horus of the horizon, greeted him. It was the first to see the dawn, the first to acknowledge the rebirth of light. In that moment, it was both priest and participant in the great solar ritual that renewed creation every day. To the people who built it, this was not symbolic poetry, it was metaphysical reality. The world continued to exist because the divine cycle was honored in stone. Some scholars believe the Sphinx's shape mirrors not only myth but the stars themselves. During the epoch of its creation, around 2500 BCE, the constellation Leo would have risen just before the sun in spring. Directly over the horizon the Sphinx faces. The lion in the sky and the lion on the earth, an eternal reflection of heaven and earth, joined in a single gaze. Whether this alignment was deliberate or coincidence, the effect is haunting. It suggests that the builders sought to bind time and eternity, to create a bridge between what is above and what lies below. But symbolism in Egypt was layered like the very strata of the stone they carved. To one priest, the Sphinx might have embodied Ra's watchful eye. To another, it could have represented the pharaoh's role as the earthly guardian of divine order. To a laborer, it might have been the face of a god who saw his toil and promised him rebirth. To a dreamer like Thutmose IV, it was a voice from eternity itself. Each interpretation added another layer to the myth, until the Sphinx became less a single idea and more a mirror reflecting the soul of Egypt. Color, too, played a crucial role in its symbolism. Traces of pigment found on its surface show that it was once painted. The body a warm reddish hue, symbolizing life and energy. The face gilded or yellowed like the sun. The headdress painted with bands of blue, representing the heavens. To see the Sphinx as it once was, gleaming with color under the desert sun, is to realize how alive it must have seemed, more idol than statue, more presence than stone. The Egyptians did not see their gods as distant abstractions. They believed them to dwell in the images they created. When the priests performed rituals before the Sphinx, offering incense and chanting hymns, they were not venerating a symbol. They were addressing the living spirit within it. And that spirit had names. Horus of the horizon, the living image of Adam, the father of terrors. Each title reveals an aspect of its mystery. As Horus, the Sphinx was the protector of kingship and the embodiment of divine sight, the all-seeing eye that ensures order in the world. As Adam, it was the creative force that emerged from chaos at the dawn of time, shaping the universe from the waters of nothingness. And as the father of terrors, it was the awe that guards sacred places, the reminder that some truths are too immense to be approached casually. The Sphinx's power lay not in what it did, but in what it represented, the eternal vigilance of creation itself. Even the erosion marks that streak its body seem symbolic, as if time itself has tried to write upon its skin. The wear and weathering are not mere decay. They are the signatures of centuries, the slow handwriting of wind and sand across the surface of eternity. Each crack is a record of survival, each scar a testament to endurance. To the ancient Egyptians, who viewed decay as part of the cycle of rebirth, this too would have meaning. The Sphinx does not resist time. It absorbs it. It remains by yielding, transforming weathering into wisdom. The Sphinx's placement at the edge of Khafre's pyramid complex adds another layer to its message. The pyramids themselves symbolized ascension, the soul's climb from the earthly to the celestial. The Sphinx, lying flat upon the ground, represents the anchor, the point where divine and mortal worlds meet. Together they form a complete cosmology. The Sphinx, the guardian of the threshold, the temples, the path of purification, the pyramid, the gateway to eternity. It is as though the entire landscape was designed as a map of the soul's journey after death. Some modern Egyptologists describe the Sphinx as a cosmic sentinel, a monument meant to hold the balance between chaos and order. The silence is not ignorance, it is vigilance. It waits, watching, ensuring that the sun rises, that the world remains aligned. And when, in later centuries, sand swallowed it, perhaps the Egyptians saw that too as symbolic. That order itself can be buried but never destroyed. The uncovering of the Sphinx, again and again through time, became an act of renewal, a rediscovery of meaning buried beneath the weight of forgetting. Even today, the Sphinx seems to speak to something deep within the human psyche. Psychologists have called it an archetype, a symbol of mystery, wisdom, and the riddle of existence. In ancient Greece, long after the age of the pharaohs, the image of the Sphinx was reborn as the riddler who tests humanity's worth. But in Egypt, the riddle was never spoken aloud. It was carved in stone. The question it asks is not, "Who am I?" but, "Do you remember? Do you remember the harmony between man and nature, between heaven and earth, between strength and spirit?" Standing before the Sphinx at dawn, as light breaks over the horizon, it is easy to imagine that its gaze is not outward but inward, that it is looking into the heart of whoever stands before it. The symbols that defined it millennia ago still pulse within that silence. It is a monument that does not tell us what to believe, but how to see. And perhaps that is the truest language of the Sphinx. Not hieroglyphs carved in stone, but a silent grammar of awe. It speaks in alignment, in proportion, in balance. It tells the same story that the Nile tells when it floods and recedes, that the sun tells when it rises and sets, that all things are part of one great rhythm, and the secret of eternity lies not in defiance of time but in harmony with it. The Sphinx, in its stillness, is that truth made visible, the riddle of existence carved into the face of the earth itself. The face of the Sphinx, once radiant with divine calm, now bears the scars of time and human folly. The nose is gone, the beard shattered, the stone skin pitted and crumbling from centuries of sand and wind. Yet there is something haunting in that damage, something almost sacred. The ruin itself has become part of the story. Each crack, each missing piece, is a word in the long poem of survival. But who or what truly disfigured the Sphinx? Was it nature alone that wore down its face, or did human hands, driven by ignorance or fear, strike against the visage of eternity? In the bright sun of the Giza Plateau, the Sphinx seems timeless. But its history is one of constant struggle against the elements. The soft limestone of its body is a living thing, breathing the air of millennia, slowly dissolving under the touch of wind and moisture. Sandstorms have flayed its surface for ages, polishing and erasing, revealing and concealing. Rain, though rare in Egypt, has seeped into its stone, carving delicate grooves that mimic the flow of water long gone. Some geologists even argue that these patterns show evidence of far older erosion, of a time when the plateau was wet, when the Nile's climate was not desert but savanna. If that is true, it would mean the Sphinx might predate the pyramids themselves, born not in the age of Khafre but in an earlier, forgotten epoch. The idea is controversial, but it lingers like a ghost. The face that stares across the sands may have once gazed upon a greener Egypt, an Egypt no human remembers. Whether or not that theory is true, the erosion tells a deeper truth, that even the most eternal monument must wrestle with time. The Sphinx was never invulnerable, it was alive, in the way all sacred things are alive, shaped and reshaped by the world around it. But not all of its wounds were carved by nature. History records many acts of human violence against the Sphinx. The earliest may have been born not of malice but neglect. As dynasties rose and fell, and the rituals of the Old Kingdom faded, the Sphinx lost its priests, its offerings, its protection. Sand began to creep higher each year, burying its body up to the neck. For generations, only its head rose above the dunes, a colossal face emerging from the earth like a memory. Without maintenance, the stone cracked under the heat of the day and the chill of the night. Time, indifferent and patient, claimed it inch by inch. Yet some wounds were deliberate. The most famous of all, the missing nose, has become a symbol of mystery in its own right. For centuries, travelers have speculated about its fate. Some say it was broken by Napoleon's soldiers during target practice in 1798, though drawings from before his arrival already show the Sphinx noseless. Others claim it was destroyed by iconoclasts in the 14th century, when a Sufi zealot named Muhammad Sa'im Aldar, enraged by local farmers making offerings to the Sphinx for good harvests, struck the face with hammer and chisel. According to medieval chronicles, he believed the statue was an idol, an affront to God. He was later executed for vandalism, but the damage was done. The face of Egypt's eternal guardian had been defaced by the hand of man. There is irony in this act of destruction. The zealot sought to erase the power of an idol, but in doing so, he only strengthened its legend. The wound became part of the myth, a scar that invited questions. Without the nose, the Sphinx's expression grew more enigmatic, its silence deeper, its gaze more haunting. In the empty space where the nose once was, people saw both loss and endurance. The mutilation transformed the monument into something even more mysterious, a relic that had suffered and survived. Fragments of its missing beard were discovered centuries later, buried in the sand and now housed in museums in Cairo and London. The beard, likely added during later restorations by the New Kingdom pharaohs, had once been a symbol of divinity. Egyptian gods and kings wore false beards to show their eternal nature, their connection to the heavens. The breaking of the Sphinx's beard, like the loss of its nose, marked its fall from godhood to ruin. Yet even in pieces, its power remained unbroken. Wind, sand, and man have all conspired to shape the Sphinx's face into what we see today. The delicate contours once smoothed by artisans are now roughened by centuries. The eyes, once inlaid with precious stone or paint, are hollow and empty, gazing into nothingness. But that emptiness is part of the allure. It draws us in, compels us to imagine what was lost. The Sphinx's current face is a palimpsest, an accumulation of ages, a dialogue between the perfection of its creation and the imperfection of its decay. Restoration efforts have come and gone, some successful, others disastrous. In the early 20th century, when archaeologists began clearing the sand again, they found the lower body crumbling. Blocks had detached, and parts of the paws were missing. Engineers patched them with modern stone, cement, and steel rods. Later restorations, too, tried to preserve it, though some methods only hastened the erosion. The Sphinx, it seems, resists being saved. It accepts the hands that shaped it, but rejects those that try to alter its fate. There is something deeply human in that resistance. We are drawn to repair what time has damaged. Yet the Sphinx reminds us that decay is part of the story. The Egyptians themselves understood this. In their belief, nothing truly died. Everything transformed. When the body aged, the spirit renewed itself. Perhaps the Sphinx's slow crumbling is not a tragedy, but a continuation. A proof that even stone participates in the eternal cycle. It is both dying and reborn, eroding and enduring. Travelers through the centuries have described it in reverent awe. Ancient Greeks saw it as the guardian of riddles. Early Arab chroniclers called it Abu al-Hol, the father of terror. In every age, its damaged face has reflected the fears and hopes of those who looked upon it. When the world was young, it symbolized divine power. When empires fell, it became a symbol of loss. In modern times, stripped of religion but rich in wonder, it has become the emblem of mystery itself, the ultimate riddle, unsolved because it cannot be solved. At dusk, when the last rays of the sun brush against its worn features, the Sphinx looks neither ancient nor ruined. It looks alive. Its face glows softly, its shadows deep and knowing. The missing nose no longer feels like absence, but an invitation, as though the Sphinx deliberately hides a secret, smiling faintly behind its scars. It has seen too much to reveal everything. Perhaps that is the greatest irony of all. That what time and man have taken away has made it even more powerful. The perfection of youth fades, but the wisdom of age endures. In its ruin, the Sphinx has transcended beauty. It has become truth, raw, incomplete, yet eternal. The missing pieces are not flaws. They are reminders of our own impermanence. And so it remains, weathered but undefeated, scarred but still magnificent. A face half destroyed, yet more alive in its silence than any words could ever be. The desert will continue to shift around it. The wind will whisper its endless song, and still it will watch unmoved. For the Sphinx does not need to be whole to be divine. It only needs to endure, and that it has done better than any god or king who ever claimed to own it. For centuries, the Sphinx slept. The desert wrapped its body in silence, covering its flanks and paws in layer upon layer of shifting sand. Only its head rose above the dunes, staring out over an empty plain where the voices of the dead were carried away by the wind. To the people who passed nearby, it seemed less a monument than a natural outcropping, a strange stone head half swallowed by the earth. But the desert never forgets what it hides. The sands bury, but they also preserve, holding their secrets in patient stillness until the time comes for revelation. The rediscovery of the Sphinx is not a single event but a story that unfolds in waves, like a memory returning piece by piece after a long sleep. Each era believed it was the first to awaken the giant, but in truth, they were merely uncovering what their ancestors had already found and lost. The Sphinx's history is cyclical, buried, revealed, revered, and forgotten again. Like the Nile, its story rises and falls, forever tied to the rhythm of time. The earliest known rediscovery came not in modern times, but in ancient ones. More than 1,000 years after it was first carved, the sands had already reclaimed most of its form. During the reign of Pharaoh Thutmose IV, around 1400 BCE, the young prince is said to have fallen asleep in its shadow after a hunt. As he slept, he dreamed that the Sphinx, then known as Horemheb, Horus of the horizon, spoke to him. The voice promised that if Thutmose would clear away the sand and restore the monument, he would ascend to the throne of Egypt. When the prince awoke, he believed the dream had been divine command. He ordered the Sphinx uncovered, its body freed from the sand, its altars rebuilt. And when he later became pharaoh, he erected the famous dream stele between its paws, a great stone tablet still standing today, carved with the tale of his vision. That stele is more than a monument. It is a message from across the ages. It tells us that even in the time of the pharaohs, the Sphinx was already ancient, already a relic of mystery and awe. The sand had buried it before, and men had dug it out before. Its rebirth under Thutmose was only one of many. For centuries after, priests tended its shrines, pilgrims brought offerings, and pharaohs restored its features. But as dynasties fell and foreign empires came, the desert crept back once more. When the Greek historians arrived in Egypt, the Sphinx was half forgotten, its true name lost beneath layers of translation and myth. Herodotus, the father of history, mentioned the pyramids but said little of the Sphinx. Later, in the Roman period, it was again partially buried. Temples crumbled, the priests vanished, and the sands of the Giza plateau swallowed what remained. For nearly 2,000 years, the Sphinx slept once more beneath the shifting dunes, dreaming of the world that once worshipped it. Then, in the age of rediscovery, the 18th and 19th centuries, the Western world began to awaken to the grandeur of ancient Egypt. Napoleon Bonaparte's invasion in 1798 brought artists, engineers, and scholars who were determined to document every ruin. When they arrived at Giza, they found the Sphinx's head protruding from the sand like a sentinel. Drawings from that time show the great face rising alone from a sea of dunes, its body completely hidden. The soldiers stared in awe. Some joked that it was a giant buried to the neck. Others felt an unease they couldn't name. The monument looked alive, watching them with ancient indifference. Napoleon's savants measured, sketched, and mapped the Sphinx, noting that it seemed older than the pyramids beside it. Their findings, later published in the monumental description de l'Egypte, ignited Europe's fascination with Egyptology. The Sphinx became the face of mystery itself, a symbol of lost civilizations, forgotten gods, and riddles carved in stone. Yet still it remained half-buried, half-dreaming. The desert, like a jealous guardian, would not yet give it up. In the 19th century, a new age of excavation began. Giovanni Battista Caviglia, an Italian adventurer obsessed with uncovering the secrets of the ancients, arrived at Giza in 1817. He gathered workers and began digging feverishly around the Sphinx. For months they labored, shoveling away endless sand, only for the wind to fill the pit again each night. Still, Caviglia persisted. When at last his men reached the massive pause, buried for thousands of years, the moment was electric. They found not just stone, but the fragments of temples, offering tables, and the remnants of prayers. It was as if the Sphinx had been reintroduced to the sun. But the triumph was fleeting. Within years, the sands returned. The desert does not relinquish its treasures easily. The Sphinx was buried once again up to its neck. it would take another generation of dreamers to free it. In the 1850s, Auguste Mariette, the French archaeologist who founded the Egyptian Antiquities Service, began clearing the Sphinx once more. He approached the task with reverence, determined not to harm the ancient monument. His work uncovered the dream stele, confirming the story of Thutmose's vision and revealing a direct link between Egypt's golden past and its buried relics. For Mariette, it was more than archaeology, it was resurrection. Yet even his efforts could not fully defeat the sands. The body remained largely buried, awaiting the modern age to finish what the ancients had begun. That task fell to Émile Barais, an engineer and archaeologist working under Egypt's Antiquities Department in the 1920s and 1930s. Barais led the first full-scale excavation of the Sphinx using modern methods. For 11 long years, his team dug day after day beneath the scorching sun, removing hundreds of thousands of cubic meters of sand. Slowly, the colossal body emerged. Massive paws, a lion's chest, and the stone tail curling behind. When the final layers were cleared, for the first time in recorded history, the Sphinx stood fully revealed from head to tail. Barais wrote that it felt like witnessing the birth of the world. The 20th century's rediscovery of the Sphinx was not just a triumph of archaeology. It was an awakening of collective memory. The image of the fully revealed Sphinx, photographed and shared around the world, became a symbol of endurance, of mystery reborn. But the excavation also exposed new questions. Beneath the Sphinx's paws, small shafts and cavities were found. Were they tombs? Storage chambers? Or something else entirely? The whispers of secret chambers and hidden halls beneath the Sphinx began to stir once more, echoing old legends that spoke of buried archives and lost knowledge. The rediscovery was not merely physical, it was spiritual. Each generation that uncovered the Sphinx was drawn not only by curiosity but by something deeper, the desire to touch eternity. To brush the sand from its body was to feel, however briefly, the presence of the infinite. Perhaps that is why the sands keep returning. The Sphinx allows us to uncover it, but only for a time. It invites discovery, but demands humility. Today, as tourists stand before it, few realize how many times it has been found, lost, and found again. The Sphinx has watched those who would uncover it come and go, their names fading into history, their tools rusting away. And still it stands, its gaze fixed on the horizon, knowing the sands will one day reclaim it once more. The desert gives, the desert takes. The Sphinx does not resist. It waits. To rediscover the Sphinx is not merely to unearth a monument. It is to reawaken something ancient within ourselves. For every time it is uncovered, we too remember. We remember that we are part of a story older than history, that what is buried is never truly lost, and that even the silence of the desert can speak, if one listens long enough. The age of the Sphinx has long been a source of fascination, debate, and controversy. For centuries, historians, archaeologists, and geologists have asked the same question. How old is this enigmatic guardian of the Giza Plateau? Traditional Egyptology places it in the reign of Pharaoh Khafre, around 2500 BCE. The alignment with Khafre's pyramid, the style of the face, and the context of the surrounding temples all point to this conclusion. Yet, when scientists began studying the erosion patterns on the Sphinx in the 20th century, a storm of questions arose, questions that could challenge everything we thought we knew about Egypt's chronology. Geologist Robert Schoch in the early 1990s proposed a radical theory that sent shockwaves through both scientific and academic communities. He argued that the Sphinx shows extensive signs of water erosion, patterns consistent not with wind and sand alone, but with prolonged rainfall. Egypt, after all, is a desert. The Giza Plateau receives little rain today. For the limestone of the Sphinx to erode in the way observed, it would have required centuries of heavy precipitation. This suggested a much older origin, perhaps as far back as 700 to 1500 BCE, during a period when the Sahara was lush and the climate much wetter. The implications were staggering. If Schoch were correct, the Sphinx might predate the Great Pyramids by thousands of years, possibly even existing in a civilization we have no record of. Could it be that the monument Khafre claimed was already ancient when he ordered the construction of his pyramid complex? This idea reframes the Sphinx not merely as a creation of the Old Kingdom, but as a witness to a prehistory that has been forgotten, swallowed by time and sand. Schock's conclusions sparked heated debate. Critics argued that the erosion patterns could still be explained by wind and occasional rainfall over millennia, or by chemical weathering of the limestone due to groundwater. Others suggested that the Sphinx had been restored multiple times, and that erosion had occurred unevenly, complicating any analysis. Yet even skeptics admitted one undeniable truth. The Sphinx's body and paws are older and more weathered than its head, which appears to have been recarved or restored at some point, possibly in Khafre's reign. This disparity between head and body adds to the enduring mystery. Geology is not the only scientific lens through which the Sphinx has been examined. Ground-penetrating radar and other non-invasive technologies have revealed anomalies beneath the monument. Hollow cavities, voids, and tunnels that suggest complex structures may lie hidden. Some of these findings correspond with ancient legends of chambers beneath the Sphinx, rumored to house secret archives, lost knowledge, or even treasures of pharaohs long gone. Whether these cavities are natural fissures, quarries, or intentional construction remains unknown. Each scan deepens the mystery rather than resolving it. The limestone of the Giza Plateau itself tells a story. It is a layered formation, with softer rock near the top and harder stone deeper down. The body of the Sphinx is carved from the softer layers, which erode faster than the denser stone beneath. This has contributed to the uneven wear observed today. Some scholars argue that these geological facts are enough to explain the erosion without invoking a radically older date. Yet the visible weathering patterns, vertical channels, rounded edges, and deeply carved grooves suggest to others a scale of precipitation that predates Khafre's time. Schock's theories intersect with an even older tradition of speculation. Throughout history, writers, mystics, and travelers have wondered if the Sphinx belonged to a lost civilization, an advanced culture predating dynastic Egypt, capable of monumental construction. Ancient texts are frustratingly silent, leaving only the monument itself as testimony. Yet some researchers point to similarities with megalithic structures in other parts of the world: stone alignments, precise orientation to celestial bodies, and massive labor forces, as hints that such a civilization might have existed. The Sphinx, in this context, becomes more than an Egyptian artifact. It is a fragment of a memory older than recorded history. Even the astronomical alignments of the Sphinx and its surrounding structures add to the puzzle. The monument faces east, toward the rising sun, but some archaeoastronomers suggest that its alignment may have once coincided with the rising of certain constellations, including Leo, during a much earlier epoch. If true, this could support the idea of a Sphinx older than Khafre, carved to mirror the heavens of a lost world. Yet these claims are contentious. Celestial alignments shift over millennia, and determining intent is almost impossible. Nevertheless, the idea feeds the imagination. Modern technology continues to probe the mysteries of the Sphinx. Thermal imaging has revealed temperature anomalies along its body, suggesting differences in material density or hidden cavities. Laser scanning allows scientists to create precise 3D maps, documenting every crack and groove. Even chemical analysis of the stone offers clues about environmental conditions over thousands of years. Each layer of investigation adds to our understanding, but also reinforces the enigma. The Sphinx is at once familiar and unknowable. What makes these scientific inquiries so compelling is the way they intersect with human narrative. The Sphinx is not merely rock and limestone. It is a story etched in stone, a question carved into the earth. Every geological study, every radar scan, every chemical test is a modern attempt to listen to a voice that has spoken for millennia without uttering a single word. And like all great mysteries, it resists definitive answers, leaving us suspended between certainty and wonder. Perhaps the true lesson of these investigations is humility. No matter how advanced our tools, no matter how rigorous our methods, the Sphinx remains a monument that transcends human timelines. Whether it is 4,500 years old, 7,000 years old, or older still, it challenges us to reconsider our assumptions about history, civilization, and the endurance of human and divine aspiration. Its stone body, eroded yet magnificent, reminds us that some knowledge cannot be rushed, some truths cannot be fully grasped, and some mysteries are meant to endure. Standing before the Sphinx, scientists and travelers alike are confronted not only with stone, but with time itself. Its weathered form is a ledger of millennia, recording climate, culture, devotion, and decay. The erosion patterns, the hidden chambers, the mismatch between head and body, all speak of a monument older and more complex than most of us are willing to admit. In a sense, the Sphinx is the ultimate teacher. It invites inquiry, demands patience, and rewards awe. The intersection of geology, archaeology, and astronomy creates a tapestry of questions, each one pulling us deeper into wonder. How much of the Sphinx's story has been lost to sand, water, and human neglect? How much remains encoded in its stone for those willing to see? And perhaps most tantalizing of all, what if it truly is older than the civilizations we attribute to it, a relic from a world that predates our history books? To ask these questions is not mere speculation. It is to participate in the ongoing dialogue between humanity and eternity. The Sphinx, in its stillness, seems to acknowledge the uncertainty. Its eyes, eroded yet penetrating, gaze across the plateau as if measuring our curiosity. It has witnessed empires rise and fall, sand bury and uncover, scholars debate and travelers marvel. It has endured beyond dynasties, beyond the records of men, beyond the understanding of its creators. And in that endurance lies its profound mystery. A riddle carved not in words, but in stone, weathered by time, and forever asking us to look deeper, to question longer, to wonder without end. For millennia, the Sphinx has been more than stone. It has been a symbol, a riddle, a repository of secret knowledge whispered across generations. To the ancient Egyptians, it was Hor-Emakhe, Horus of the horizon, a divine sentinel who watched over the passage of the sun, the rhythm of life, and the fate of kings. But beyond its religious significance, the Sphinx has inspired countless interpretations, myths, and esoteric theories, many of which suggest that it holds knowledge deliberately hidden from the uninitiated, a wisdom encoded in its form, its orientation, and its very presence on the Giza Plateau. One of the earliest and most enduring mysteries is its supposed connection to astrology. The Sphinx is a lion, and its gaze faces the rising sun in the east. Some scholars and occultists suggest that this is no coincidence. Around 10,500 BCE, the constellation Leo would have risen directly over the horizon at the spring equinox, aligning perfectly with the Sphinx's stare. If this alignment was intentional, it implies a level of astronomical knowledge far older than the accepted timeline of Egyptian civilization. The implication is staggering. The Sphinx may be an astronomical marker, a cosmic calendar designed to link the Earth with the heavens, a message from a civilization attuned to the stars. Throughout history, mystics and esoteric scholars have viewed the Sphinx as a guardian of hidden wisdom. Its expression is famously inscrutable, a calm mask hiding 1,000 secrets. Some believe that the very proportions of the statue encode mathematical and metaphysical truths. The height, length, and width of the Sphinx, when compared with the surrounding pyramids and temples, seem to reflect sacred ratios, mirroring the dimensions of the human body, the golden ratio, and the patterns of the cosmos. It is as if the monument itself is a key, designed to awaken understanding in those capable of reading its language. In the realm of myth, the Sphinx has long been linked to riddles and tests of knowledge. The Greeks, who encountered it centuries after its creation, transformed it into the creature of legend that demanded the answer to a riddle. What walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs at noon, and 3 in the evening? Failure to answer meant death. In Egypt, the riddle is silent, yet no less present. The Sphinx's test is not verbal but visual, intellectual, and spiritual. It challenges the observer to understand proportion, harmony, and the hidden geometry of the universe. Those who study it carefully may find answers not in words, but in patterns, alignments, and symbolism. Esoteric theorists often suggest that the Sphinx marks the entrance to subterranean chambers and hidden libraries, repositories of knowledge meant for an elite few. These chambers, they argue, were intended to preserve the wisdom of an earlier civilization, knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, medicine, and perhaps even cosmology. While no definitive evidence of such chambers has yet been found, ground-penetrating radar and other non-invasive surveys have revealed anomalies beneath and around the Sphinx. Some argue these may be natural voids, while others believe they hint at a carefully hidden archive, inaccessible to casual observers. The concept of the Sphinx as a guardian of secret wisdom extends beyond physical chambers. In the Egyptian worldview, knowledge was divine, and only the worthy could access it. The pharaoh, as the intermediary between gods and men, would have been granted understanding of the universe's deepest laws. The Sphinx, then, serves as a spiritual sentinel, standing at the threshold between the mortal world and divine comprehension. Its lion body symbolizes strength, endurance, and the power to guard, while the human head represents intellect and consciousness, the tools necessary to unlock hidden truths. Some esoteric interpretations also link the Sphinx to the cycles of time and memory. The monument's immense longevity allows it to witness history across millennia, absorbing the energy and knowledge of each era. In this sense, it becomes a living record, a silent chronicle of humanity's rise and fall, the evolution of belief, and the transformation of civilizations. Mystics have argued that by meditating in the Sphinx's presence, one can tap into this accumulated wisdom, gaining insight into the patterns that govern existence itself. The symbolism extends to the pyramids of Giza. The Sphinx, positioned near the Pyramid of Khafre, may have served as both sentinel and key. Its alignment, proportions, and placement suggest that it was designed as part of a larger spiritual and cosmic map. According to some theories, the pyramids are repositories of energy, aligned with stars and ley lines, while the Sphinx acts as both guardian and receptor, balancing forces between earth and sky. In this view, the entire Giza Plateau is a sacred instrument, tuned by geometry, astronomy, and metaphysics. Throughout history, adventurers and scholars have tried to interpret the Sphinx's hidden wisdom. Renaissance thinkers, fascinated by ancient Egypt, saw it as a symbol of lost knowledge from a civilization preceding recorded history. In the 19th century, European explorers like Champollion and Lepsius speculated that hieroglyphs near the Sphinx contained clues to the universe's origins. In the 20th century, alternative theorists, inspired by Schacht's geological theories and the enigmas of the plateau, posited that the Sphinx was deliberately built to communicate messages across time, waiting for humanity to evolve enough to understand them. Yet the Sphinx is ultimately elusive. Its secrets are not written plainly, nor intended for all eyes. Its very damage, the missing nose, the crumbling beard, the eroded body, may be part of the design, a way to veil its knowledge from those unprepared. In esoteric thought, concealment is a form of protection. The most profound truths, like the Sphinx itself, reveal themselves only to those who approach with patience, reverence, and the humility to listen to silence. The Sphinx also embodies dualities, human and animal, conscious and instinctual, visible and hidden. These dualities suggest that knowledge, like the monument, is layered. Some truths are accessible through observation and study, while others require intuition, imagination, or even spiritual awakening. The Sphinx thus functions as both teacher and challenge, reminding humanity that understanding comes not from force or speed, but from deep engagement with the mysteries of life and the cosmos. Ultimately, the esoteric allure of the Sphinx is not in what it definitively tells us, but in what it asks of us. It asks us to question our assumptions, to explore the intersection of history, science, and myth, to wonder about civilizations lost to time, and to consider the limits of human knowledge. In its stillness, it bridges millennia, connecting modern observers with the minds and hearts of those who first carved it, those who worshipped it, and those who have sought its wisdom through all the ages. The Sphinx stands as a testament to the idea that some mysteries are meant to endure. Its symbolism, cosmic alignments, and esoteric connections hint at truths hidden not just beneath the stone, but within the mind and spirit of humanity. It is a monument to the eternal search for knowledge, the pursuit of understanding that transcends time, culture, and mortality. And perhaps that is its ultimate power, to inspire awe, contemplation, and the relentless desire to uncover what lies beyond the visible. to seek the wisdom encoded in the very stones of the earth. The Sphinx has always lived not just in stone, but in the imagination of those who encounter it. Across centuries, it has inspired awe, fear, reverence, and speculation, weaving itself into the cultural memory of civilizations far beyond Egypt. Its story stretches across languages and borders, carried by travelers, chroniclers, and storytellers who tried to capture, however imperfectly, the presence of this eternal guardian. Every account, from Greek myths to Arab chronicles, layers the Sphinx with meaning, turning it into a symbol of mystery that transcends time. To the Greeks, the Sphinx became a creature of legend and terror. They had heard of Egypt's monuments and the stories of its gods, and when they encountered the Sphinx, whether in person or through description, it was transformed into a riddle-bearing beast. In Greek mythology, the Sphinx sat outside the city of Thebes, demanding answers to her enigmatic question: what walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 at noon, and 3 in the evening? Those who failed were destroyed. The Greeks borrowed the image of the lion-bodied, human-headed creature, overlaying their own fears and moral lessons onto a monument that had originated thousands of miles and centuries away. To them, the Sphinx represented a test of intellect and courage, a bridge between mortal life and divine judgment. Arab historians and chroniclers preserved another layer of the Sphinx's story. To them, it was Abu al-Hol, the father of terror, a name evocative of the awe it inspired. Arab scholars and travelers recorded tales of pilgrims who came to the plateau, describing the Sphinx as a sleeping giant, half buried in sand, gazing across the desert with eyes that seemed to follow every movement. Some believed the Sphinx to be alive in some spiritual sense, a sentinel not merely of tombs or temples, but of the land itself. Local legends held that the monument could curse those who approached with disrespect, or reward those who approached with reverence. In these accounts, the Sphinx became a mirror, reflecting the hopes, fears, and moral sensibilities of the communities that lived in its shadow. European travelers in the medieval and early modern periods added yet another dimension. Merchants, pilgrims, and explorers crossing the Sahara or journeying up the Nile were captivated by stories of the Great Sphinx. They described it in letters, sketches, and travelogues, often emphasizing its sheer size, the mystery of its missing nose, and the sense of silence that enveloped it. Some wrote in awe of its craftsmanship, marveling at how humans could shape stone into such perfection. Others infused their accounts with superstition, imagining curses or hidden treasures beneath its paws. Through these narratives, the Sphinx became a symbol of the exotic and the unknown, a tangible link to an ancient, enigmatic world beyond European understanding. The blending of fact and myth deepened the Sphinx's cultural resonance. Legends of hidden chambers beneath the monument, sometimes containing secret knowledge, treasures, or even entire libraries, circulated widely. These tales were never verified, yet they endured because they spoke to a universal human fascination, the desire to uncover what is hidden, to penetrate the unknowable. Travelers, explorers, and later archaeologists approached the Sphinx with a mix of reverence and ambition, drawn by the promise of revelation as much as by the promise of history. The Sphinx also became a literary symbol. Poets and writers invoked it as a metaphor for endurance, mystery, and the passage of time. Percy Bysshe Shelley's Reflections, for example, captured the tension between permanence and decay, awe and terror. Romantic writers saw in the Sphinx a witness to civilizations long gone, a silent observer of human hubris, and a keeper of secrets beyond human comprehension. In every verse, the Sphinx stood as a reminder that time is both destroyer and preserver, that monuments speak not only to their creators but to all who follow. Even among early archaeologists, the Sphinx inspired both admiration and obsession. Giovanni Battista Caviglia, Carl Richard Lepsius, and Auguste Mariette documented their excavations meticulously, but their work was infused with awe. They wrote of the Sphinx as if it were alive, as if the stone itself could sense their intentions. The process of uncovering the half-buried body, of brushing centuries of sand from its paws and chest, became a spiritual encounter, not merely a scientific endeavor. To these early scholars, The Sphinx was a bridge across time, connecting them to the artisans and priests who had first carved its form in devotion thousands of years earlier. Through these varied accounts, a consistent image emerges. The Sphinx is a guardian, a riddle, and a witness. Its form, a lion's body with a human head, speaks of power tempered by intellect, of instinct guided by consciousness. Its placement on the plateau, at the threshold between the pyramids and the desert, emphasizes its role as sentinel and mediator between worlds. And its endurance, even as sand, wind, and human hands tried to obscure or damage it, reinforces its symbolic power. Cultural memory is not static, and the Sphinx's image has evolved with each era. To one generation it was a god, to another a monster, to yet another a repository of hidden knowledge. Today, it is an icon, recognized worldwide, yet still shrouded in mystery. Modern visitors are drawn by its size, its symbolism, and the stories passed down over centuries. Tourists photograph it, scholars measure it, and artists interpret it, each adding a new layer to its ongoing narrative. Yet beneath all these interpretations remains the original enigma, the silent gaze across the sands that continues to inspire awe and wonder. The Sphinx's power in cultural memory lies in its adaptability. It absorbs the stories told about it, reshaping them without losing its essence. It becomes whatever each culture needs: a warning, a guide, a riddle, or a testament to human ingenuity. In every retelling, the monument lives anew, its meaning expanding as it passes from one mind to another. This is perhaps its greatest secret: its ability to endure not only physically but intellectually and spiritually, influencing human thought across millennia. In the end, the Sphinx is more than the sum of myths, chronicles, and travelers' tales. It is a mirror, reflecting both the aspirations of its creators and the imaginations of those who encounter it. It has been buried, revealed, revered, feared, and studied. Yet through it all, it maintains a singular presence, a silent observer of time, a guardian of mysteries, a riddle without a definitive answer. Every narrative adds to its story, but none can contain it fully. The Sphinx remains eternal, as much a creature of memory as of stone, forever bridging the past with the present, the known with the unknown. The modern history of the Sphinx is a story of obsession, discovery, and often conflict. For centuries, the monument lay partially buried under shifting sands, hidden from the eyes of the world, only to be rediscovered and documented by explorers, scholars, and adventurers. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, the Sphinx became the focal point of Egyptology's first systematic investigations, and with these excavations came both revelation and controversy. Each layer of sand removed revealed not just the limestone beneath, but a tangled narrative of human ambition, miscalculation, and the challenge of preserving one of the world's oldest monuments. The earliest modern attempts to excavate the Sphinx were driven as much by fascination as by imperial ambition. European explorers and antiquarians, eager to claim knowledge of the ancient world, approached the monument with a mix of reverence and practicality. Giovanni Battista Caviglia in the early 1800s began painstakingly removing sand from around its body, uncovering the paws and portions of the chest. Yet the work was slow and inconsistent. With limited tools and rudimentary methods, he struggled to prevent the wind from quickly reclaiming the exposed surfaces. Despite his dedication, Caviglia could not fully reveal the Sphinx, and by the time his work ended, much of the body remained buried, awaiting later generations to continue the task. In the late 19th century, European archaeologists brought more systematic methods to bear. Auguste Mariette, founder of the Egyptian Antiquities Service, oversaw early projects to uncover the base of the Sphinx and document its condition. His team cleared sand, mapped the site, and studied inscriptions such as the Dream Stele, offering insight into Thutmose IV's restoration thousands of years earlier. Mariette's work was significant because it marked a shift from casual excavation to methodical study, emphasizing preservation as well as discovery. Yet even this early work faced criticism. Some scholars felt that European intervention risked damaging the fragile limestone, while others argued that inadequate recording of the surrounding landscape left important context lost forever. The most extensive and ambitious excavation came during the 1920s and 1930s, led by Émile Barrais. Over 11 years, Barrais and his team cleared the Sphinx completely from the surrounding sands, revealing the massive paws, chest, and lion's body. This was the first time in recorded history that the Sphinx could be seen in its entirety. Barrais' project was monumental, requiring hundreds of workers, careful attention to structural stability, and constant monitoring of the desert environment. Photographs from this period show the Sphinx in stark relief against the plateau, a figure of both awe and endurance. Yet even this triumph was not free from controversy. Some critics argued that modern excavation techniques, though far advanced compared to earlier efforts, risked accelerating erosion or destabilizing the monument, a tension that continues to this day. Restoration efforts in the modern era have been fraught with difficulty. In the mid-20th century, engineers attempted to stabilize the Sphinx using cement and artificial stone, patching areas that had crumbled under centuries of wind and sand. While some repairs held, others proved destructive, introducing materials that reacted poorly with the ancient limestone. These missteps became cautionary tales for later conservators, emphasizing the delicate balance between preservation and interference. Each attempt to save the Sphinx has been a negotiation with time itself. Too little, and erosion continues. Too much, and the monument loses its authenticity. Controversy also extends to interpretation and dating. As scientific studies, such as Robert Schoch's analysis of water erosion, gained attention, debates emerged over whether the Sphinx predated Khafre's reign by thousands of years. Egyptologists, adhering to traditional chronologies, often rejected these claims, while alternative theorists argued for a more ancient origin. These disagreements have sometimes spilled over into public debate, fueling sensational claims and conspiracy theories. The Sphinx, in this sense, is not merely a subject of study. It is a battleground of ideas, where archaeology, geology, and speculation collide. Political and national interests have played a role as well. During the early 20th century, Egypt's antiquities laws were still developing, and control over excavations was a source of tension between local authorities and foreign archaeologists. Some restorations and digs were criticized as being more about prestige than science, with monuments treated as trophies rather than heritage. Later, Egyptian authorities emphasized local stewardship, seeking to protect the Sphinx from exploitation while allowing careful scientific study. The interplay between national pride and global curiosity has shaped how the Sphinx is understood, preserved, and presented to the world. Despite these challenges, modern archaeology has brought remarkable discoveries. Studies of the surrounding temples, causeways, and nearby tombs have revealed insights into the construction techniques and ceremonial functions associated with the Sphinx. Archaeologists have traced how the monument was integrated into a complex spiritual landscape, connecting it with the pyramids, the Nile, and solar worship. Each excavation has added layers of understanding, demonstrating that the Sphinx is not an isolated object, but part of a larger, meticulously designed cosmology. Controversy and preservation are ongoing. The Sphinx faces constant threats from natural and human forces. Acid rain, groundwater intrusion, and pollution accelerate erosion, while millions of visitors bring additional wear. Modern restoration projects aim to mitigate these risks, using advanced materials and non-invasive techniques, yet the balance remains delicate. Every intervention raises questions. Are we preserving the Sphinx, or are we altering it? Can any restoration maintain the integrity of a monument that has already been reshaped by time, sand, and human hands? The Sphinx's role in modern archaeology is therefore twofold. It is a subject of rigorous study, and it is a symbol of the ethical challenges inherent in preserving history. It teaches scholars about ancient engineering, religion, and artistry, while also serving as a cautionary tale about the limits of human intervention. Every measurement, excavation, and restoration effort is a conversation with time, a negotiation between learning and preserving, between curiosity and respect. Perhaps the greatest lesson from modern archaeology is humility. Despite advanced technology and centuries of study, the Sphinx continues to surprise and resist definitive understanding. Each discovery leads to new questions. What lies beneath its paws? How much of its original face has been lost? Could its construction techniques hint at knowledge lost to history? And yet, even without all the answers, the Sphinx endures as a monument of both human ambition and the resilience of time itself. Today, the Sphinx stands as a bridge between past and present, archaeology and imagination, science and myth. Its modern rediscovery and restoration highlight both human ingenuity and the limits of our power over nature and history. It reminds us that while we may uncover and preserve, we must also respect that our greatest triumphs often lie not in control, but in understanding, patience, and reverence. The Sphinx is a teacher of endurance, a witness to centuries of inquiry, and a monument whose full story, despite modern efforts, remains tantalizingly out of reach. The Sphinx has long transcended its physical form, becoming a symbol in the imagination of the modern world. Its massive, enigmatic visage has inspired artists, writers, filmmakers, and documentarians, each interpreting its silent gaze in ways that extend far beyond the Giza Plateau. The Sphinx has entered popular culture as a riddle of mystery and power, a bridge between ancient history and contemporary storytelling, captivating audiences who may never set foot in Egypt yet feel its presence through images, narratives, and myths. In literature, the Sphinx has become an archetype of mystery and the unknowable. Writers of the 19th and 20th centuries drew on its image to evoke awe, fear, and wonder. Romantic poets described the Sphinx as a sentinel of time, a guardian of secrets lost to the sands. In novels and stories, it often represents the intersection of human ambition and the vastness of history, a reminder that civilizations rise and fall while some monuments endure. The allure of the Sphinx lies not only in its size and age but in its silence. It is a riddle without a definitive answer, compelling readers to imagine what knowledge or power it might conceal. The cinematic world has been particularly captivated by the Sphinx. From early silent films to modern blockbusters, it is depicted as both guardian and gateway, often a site of adventure, discovery, or supernatural power. In films exploring Egypt, it is rarely just a backdrop. The Sphinx is a character itself, silent yet omnipresent, its gaze imbued with intelligence and intention. Hollywood has emphasized its mystery, often exaggerating its abilities, attributing secret chambers or hidden technologies, blending history and myth in ways that captivate audiences and reinforce the monument's iconic status. These portrayals, though fantastical, echo centuries of fascination with the monument's inscrutable nature. Documentaries have taken a more analytical approach, yet even here, the Sphinx is framed as a puzzle to be solved. Popular YouTube channels, television specials, and streaming platforms often highlight its unanswered questions. Its true age, the erosion patterns, the alignment with stars, and the possibility of hidden chambers. Narratives are constructed around suspense and revelation, emphasizing discovery and intrigue. Viewers are drawn into a cinematic experience where the desert sands, the crumbling limestone, and the monument's monumental scale are as much characters as the scholars and explorers who study it. The Sphinx becomes a portal to the past, a way for modern audiences to engage with history on a personal, almost visceral level. Photography and digital media have also reshaped the Sphinx's cultural presence. High-resolution images, 3D scans, and virtual tours allow millions to experience the monument remotely. Social media amplifies its reach, turning the Sphinx into a global icon whose image conveys mystery, endurance, and the allure of ancient civilizations. These digital interpretations add layers to its modern mythology. Images are curated, shared, and interpreted in ways that reinforce the monument's symbolic power, making it a fixture not only in history but in the contemporary imagination. The Sphinx has inspired countless artistic interpretations. Painters and sculptors have attempted to capture the essence of its gaze, the tension between human and animal form, and the dialogue between time and stone. In these works, it is often depicted as larger than life, a figure simultaneously majestic and enigmatic. Artists explore its duality, the human intellect merged with the raw power of the lion, as a metaphor for the complexities of existence, the interplay of reason and instinct, and the enduring mystery of the universe. In popular culture, the Sphinx is frequently connected with secret knowledge or hidden treasure. Adventure novels, video games, and speculative documentaries suggest that beneath its paws, or behind its silent gaze lie keys to forgotten civilizations, mystical powers, or advanced technologies. These narratives, while fictional, draw on centuries of myth and speculation, including ancient legends of subterranean chambers, cosmic alignments, and esoteric wisdom. In this way, the Sphinx becomes not just a monument but a symbol of humanity's quest for meaning, our fascination with the unknown, and our desire to uncover what history may have hidden. Tourism has amplified the Sphinx's modern mythos. Millions of visitors each year experience its presence firsthand, feeling the weight of its size, the intensity of its gaze, and the resonance of its history. Guides tell stories that blend fact, legend, and conjecture, continuing the centuries-long tradition of imbuing the Sphinx with meaning. Tourists are captivated not only by its physical majesty, but by the aura of mystery that surrounds it, a mixture of history, myth, and imagination that ensures the monument remains eternally compelling. Even in academic circles, the Sphinx's popular image affects research and public perception. Its portrayal in media and culture draws attention and funding, influencing the direction of excavation, preservation, and scientific inquiry. While scholars strive for accuracy, they must navigate the expectations created by its mythic status, balancing rigorous research with the monument's almost legendary aura. The Sphinx exists in a dual realm, as a subject of precise study and as a symbol that transcends empirical analysis. The modern imagination of the Sphinx also reflects broader human themes. It is an emblem of endurance, surviving millennia of natural and human forces. It is a testament to human curiosity, drawing generations of explorers, scientists, and dreamers to gaze upon it and ask questions that may never be answered. And it is a mirror of our own desires and fears, representing the unknown, the eternal, and the possibility that some knowledge is deliberately concealed, waiting for those patient enough to seek it. Ultimately, the Sphinx in modern culture is a bridge between the past and present. It connects the civilization that carved it with contemporary humanity, linking ancient religion, myth, and artistry with modern science, storytelling, and imagination. Its presence in films, documentaries, literature, and digital media ensures that it is not just an artifact but a living symbol, one whose mystery continues to inspire awe, curiosity, and wonder. The monument's silent gaze challenges each observer to ask, what does it know that we do not? And in that question lies the enduring power of the Sphinx. The Sphinx has always been a magnet for mystery, and in the modern era, that fascination has given rise to countless conspiracy theories and fringe narratives. While mainstream archaeology approaches the monument with careful study and evidence, popular imagination has taken the Sphinx far beyond its historical and geological context. Tales of lost civilizations, hidden chambers, extraterrestrial involvement, and secret knowledge have proliferated, creating a shadow history that is as compelling as it is controversial. In these theories, the Sphinx becomes more than a monument. It is a symbol of forbidden truth, a riddle waiting for the bold or the imaginative to decode. One of the most persistent strands of speculation concerns the Sphinx's age. Traditional Egyptology dates it to the reign of Pharaoh Khafre, around 2500 BCE, yet geological evidence, particularly Robert Schoch's observations of water erosion, has prompted alternative interpretations. Schoch suggested that the Sphinx might be thousands of years older, perhaps dating back to 700 to 5000 BCE, in a time when the Sahara was green and wet. Fringe theorists have seized on this, proposing the existence of a lost, advanced civilization that predated known Egyptian dynasties. According to this narrative, the Sphinx was not carved by Khafre's architects but by a people whose knowledge and achievements have been erased from the historical record. The monument thus becomes proof, in their view, of humanity's forgotten past. Linked to these theories is the idea that the Sphinx guards hidden chambers containing secret knowledge. Some researchers claim that underground tunnels and voids detected through radar and seismic surveys point to libraries, archives, or repositories of advanced technology. Speculative authors argue that these chambers may contain records of the lost civilization, astronomical knowledge, or even prophetic insights. While no definitive evidence has emerged, the notion of subterranean secrets fuels countless books, documentaries, and online debates. The Sphinx, silent for millennia, is recast as a guardian of truths too profound or too dangerous for general discovery. Extraterrestrial involvement is another popular, if controversial, theory. Proponents argue that the precision and scale of the Sphinx, coupled with its supposed astronomical alignments, suggest knowledge beyond what ancient humans could have possessed. Ancient astronaut theorists propose that extraterrestrials either influenced its construction or inspired its builders, leaving the Sphinx as a message or marker for future civilizations. Skeptics dismiss these claims as speculative, yet they persist in popular culture, appearing in television programs, online videos, and speculative fiction. The Sphinx becomes a bridge between earthbound history and cosmic mystery, a monument that seems to whisper of otherworldly intervention. Some fringe narratives focus on symbolism and esotericism. Authors argue that the Sphinx's human head and lion body are deliberately designed to encode hidden knowledge, from sacred geometry to astrological cycles. The alignment with the rising sun and certain constellations is interpreted as a cosmic message, suggesting that the monument was not only a guardian but also a transmitter of wisdom. The missing nose, in these interpretations, is often treated as a purposeful concealment or even as an act of sabotage designed to obscure the full truth. Every erosion, crack, and modification becomes a clue, a cipher left for future generations to decode. Lost civilizations, particularly Atlantis, are frequently invoked in relation to the Sphinx. Writers and theorists suggest that survivors of a global catastrophe might have migrated to the Nile Valley, bringing with them knowledge and construction techniques that allowed for monuments like the Sphinx to be carved with precision and purpose. In this scenario, Khafre's reign merely represents a later civilization rediscovering and restoring the relics of an older, more advanced society. The Sphinx, in these accounts, is a surviving testament to a prehistory intentionally hidden or forgotten, a link between the known and the unknown. Conspiracy theories also extend to the motives of modern scholars and governments. Some suggest that excavations and studies are carefully controlled to conceal the true age or purpose of the Sphinx. According to these claims, the Sphinx may contain evidence that would upend accepted timelines of civilization, revealing advanced cultures far earlier than history allows. While these theories are speculative and often unprovable, they feed into a broader narrative of human curiosity, secrecy, and the tension between discovery and authority. Media and internet culture have amplified these fringe ideas. Online videos, documentaries, and discussion forums present the Sphinx as a site of intrigue, often blending scientific findings with speculation and dramatic storytelling. Viewers are encouraged to question official narratives, consider alternative timelines, and imagine hidden truths. While this can promote interest in history, it also blurs the line between evidence-based study and conjecture. The Sphinx, in this space, functions as both a subject of fascination and a canvas for projection, its meaning shaped as much by audience imagination as by historical fact. Despite the speculative nature of these theories, they reveal something fundamental about humanity's relationship with the Sphinx. The monument is not merely an artifact. It is a mirror for our desires, fears, and longing for meaning. Its massive, silent gaze invites interpretation and the gaps in our knowledge. Its age, purpose, and potential hidden chambers become fertile ground for storytelling. Whether one subscribes to mainstream archaeology or fringe theories, the Sphinx continues to compel inquiry and imagination, standing as an enduring challenge to human understanding. In many ways, these modern myths echo older traditions. Ancient Egyptians may have already perceived the Sphinx as a guardian of sacred knowledge, a sentinel bridging the divine and the mortal. Later Greek, Arab, and European interpretations similarly cast it as a figure of mystery, a riddle, or a moral challenge. Modern conspiracy theories are simply the latest iteration in a long history of fascination, each generation projecting its own fears and hopes onto the monument. The Sphinx is at once timeless and adaptable, its meaning evolving while its form endures. Ultimately, the Sphinx's presence in conspiracy theories and pseudo-archaeology underscores its power as a symbol of the unknown. It embodies humanity's desire to uncover secrets, to question accepted history, and to confront the limits of knowledge. Whether guarding lost civilizations, secret chambers, or cosmic truths, the Sphinx invites engagement with the mysteries of time, history, and the universe itself. Its silence is not emptiness but a challenge, compelling us to explore, imagine, and wonder. Even skeptics cannot deny the allure. The Sphinx is a nexus where history, science, myth, and imagination intersect. Every claim, no matter how implausible, reminds us that the monument is more than limestone. It is an enduring riddle, a test of curiosity, and a canvas for the human mind. In this light, conspiracy theories, fringe ideas, and pseudo-archaeological narratives are not merely distractions. They are part of the ongoing dialogue between humanity and eternity, a testament to the enduring fascination of one of the world's most enigmatic monuments. The Sphinx was not merely a monumental sculpture. It was a profound symbol deeply embedded in the religious and spiritual life of ancient Egypt. From the moment it was carved, it served as a focal point for devotion, a guardian of sacred spaces, and an embodiment of divine authority. Its human head atop a lion's body created a visual synthesis of intellect and power, a combination designed to convey the dual nature of the pharaoh as both ruler and divine intermediary. The Sphinx was more than stone. It was a living participant in rituals, a silent witness to the spiritual and political heartbeat of an entire civilization. Central to the Sphinx's religious significance was its connection to solar worship. The ancient Egyptians revered the sun as the source of life, the divine presence that illuminated the world and governed the cycles of time. The Sphinx, facing east, directly greets the rising sun each day, embodying the eternal renewal of light over darkness. This orientation was no accident. It reflects the Egyptians' precise astronomical knowledge and their understanding of cosmic order. During key religious festivals, the alignment of the Sphinx with solar phenomena, particularly the equinoxes and solstices, would have imbued the monument with heightened spiritual energy. Priests and devotees would witness the first rays of dawn striking its face, symbolically linking the pharaoh, the sun god, and the land itself. The pharaoh's divine authority is central to understanding the Sphinx. In Egyptian cosmology, the king was not merely a ruler but the earthly embodiment of divine order, or Ma'at. By carving his likeness or the likeness of the god-king into the Sphinx, the Egyptians created a visual declaration of this authority. The pharaoh, often associated with Horus, was portrayed as a mediator between gods and humans, responsible for maintaining balance, justice, and cosmic harmony. The Sphinx's human face embodies intellect, vigilance, and wisdom, while its lion body signifies strength, courage, and the capacity to protect the sacred. Together, the figure communicates that the pharaoh's power is both intellectual and physical, grounded in divine mandate. The surrounding temples and pyramids were integral to the Sphinx's spiritual function. It was not an isolated sculpture but a central piece in a carefully orchestrated religious landscape. The Sphinx Temple, located nearby, and the causeway connecting it to the Valley Temple were stages for rituals honoring the sun and the pharaoh. Ceremonies likely included offerings, processions, and prayers intended to renew the king's divine essence and ensure the prosperity of the kingdom. Archaeological evidence, such as stelae, altars, and carved inscriptions, suggests that these rituals were elaborate, highly symbolic, and carefully aligned with the movements of celestial bodies. The Sphinx served as both a participant and observer, its presence reinforcing the sacred legitimacy of these rites. The symbolism of the Sphinx also extended into funerary and mortuary practices. In Egyptian belief, the protection of sacred tombs and monuments was vital to the journey of the deceased into the afterlife. By positioning the Sphinx near Khafre's pyramid complex, the builders may have intended it as a guardian for both the pharaoh's tomb and the surrounding sacred space. The lion's body projects vigilance and power, warding off any spiritual or physical threats, while the human face conveys divine wisdom and judgment. In this duality, The Sphinx embodies the eternal protection of the king, both in life and beyond, reinforcing the connection between worldly authority and cosmic order. Religious rituals surrounding the Sphinx were also connected to the concept of renewal and cyclical time. Ancient Egyptians understood the universe as a repeating cycle of creation, destruction, and rebirth. The Sphinx's alignment with the sun, the shifting sands, and the lunar and stellar cycles symbolized this eternal rhythm. Festivals such as the Opet and the Sed Jubilee would have invoked the Sphinx as a cosmic witness, reinforcing the pharaoh's divine legitimacy and the continued fertility and stability of the land. Its gaze toward the horizon signified vigilance over both earthly and spiritual realms, bridging the transient human experience with eternal cosmic forces. Priests played a central role in mediating between the Sphinx and the public. They maintained the monument, conducted ceremonies, and interpreted its symbolism for the broader community. These rituals would have included chants, offerings of food and incense, and possibly even secret rites performed only within the temples. The Sphinx was not a passive figure. It was animated through ritual, its presence imbued with spiritual energy and divine significance. By participating in these rites, priests and pharaoh alike reinforced the monument's sacred authority, transforming stone into a living symbol of power and devotion. The Sphinx also embodied dualities central to Egyptian cosmology. Its lion body represents the untamed forces of nature and the king's ability to control them, while its human head symbolizes intellect, moral judgment, and divine understanding. In this sense, the Sphinx is both protector and teacher, a sentinel guiding not only the pharaoh but the people in their understanding of cosmic balance. The interplay between its physical and spiritual attributes reflects the Egyptian worldview, that divine power is manifested in both the tangible and intangible, the earthly and celestial. Even the erosion and damage the Sphinx has endured can be interpreted through a spiritual lens. Ancient Egyptians may have understood that monuments, like humans, are subject to the forces of time, yet their ritual significance persists. Restorations performed by pharaohs such as Thutmose, who erected the dream stele between its paws, indicate a continuing reverence and acknowledgement of the monument's sacred role. These acts of preservation were not merely practical. They were spiritual, reaffirming the Sphinx's role as a divine guardian and witness to history. The Sphinx's religious function extended beyond the immediate pharaoh or dynasty. It was a symbol of enduring cosmic order, a tangible representation of the principles that govern both human society and the natural world. Its gaze, forever eastward, reminds observers of the daily triumph of light over darkness, life over death, and order over chaos. In this way, the Sphinx functions as a bridge between the human and divine, the temporal and eternal, embodying a philosophy of continuity, vigilance, and spiritual authority that underpinned ancient Egyptian civilization. Ultimately, the Sphinx's role in ancient religious rituals and symbolism was multifaceted. It was a guardian, a celestial marker, a reflection of divine kingship, and a participant in sacred ceremonies. Its alignment, proportions, and placement were deliberate, integrating the monument into a complex network of temples, pyramids, and cosmic observations. More than a sculpture, the Sphinx was a living symbol of the Egyptian worldview, a convergence of power, faith, and cosmic order. Even millennia later, its presence continues to convey the spiritual and cultural sophistication of a civilization that understood the enduring power of stone, ritual, and symbol. The design of the Sphinx is far more than a mere depiction of a lion with a human face. It is a carefully conceived monument whose proportions, features, and orientation embody layers of symbolism that continue to fascinate scholars, artists, and mystics alike. Every curve of its limestone body, every angle of its gaze, and every alignment with the surrounding landscape carries meaning, merging practical construction with spiritual and cosmic considerations. The Sphinx was not carved merely to impress. It was designed to communicate, to encode knowledge, and to serve as a living symbol of power, divinity, and the interplay between the earthly and the celestial. The human face of the Sphinx is a central element of its symbolism. Many scholars identify it as representing Pharaoh Khafre, though there is debate about whether the face is an original depiction or a restoration of an older, pre-existing image. Regardless of attribution, the facial features are remarkably precise and proportioned, reflecting both aesthetic sensibility and cultural values. The broad forehead, pronounced cheekbones, and serene expression convey intelligence, authority, and spiritual composure. These features suggest a figure who is both human and divine, embodying the Egyptian ideal of kingship. Wisdom tempered by strength, vigilance tempered by calm. The careful attention to proportion indicates an understanding not only of anatomy but of the psychological power of visual symbolism. The lion's body, in contrast to the human head, conveys physical power, protection, and dominance over the natural world. Lions were revered in ancient Egypt as symbols of courage, ferocity, and guardianship, and by merging this form with the human intellect, the Sphinx becomes a perfect emblem of duality. Its stance, low to the ground yet poised and forward-facing, projects both restraint and latent energy. The body rests in repose, yet it seems ready to rise, mirroring the pharaoh's role as both ruler and protector, capable of maintaining cosmic and earthly order. This duality is reflected in Egyptian cosmology, where the harmony between mind and strength, divine will and earthly action, is essential to the balance of Ma'at, the principle of truth and cosmic justice. Sacred geometry appears to play a critical role in the Sphinx's proportions. Scholars and esoteric theorists alike have noted that its dimensions correspond to mathematical ratios found elsewhere in Egyptian architecture, particularly the pyramids and temples of the Giza Plateau. These ratios, which resonate with principles such as the golden ratio and harmonic proportions, suggest that the monument was intended to reflect universal laws of beauty and balance. The placement of the Sphinx within the plateau creates a geometric dialogue with the surrounding pyramids, temples, and causeways, reinforcing the impression that the site was designed not only for ritual and ceremonial purposes, but also as a cosmic map connecting the earthly realm with the heavens. The orientation of the Sphinx further amplifies its symbolic power. Facing east, the monument greets the rising sun each morning, aligning it with solar cycles that were central to Egyptian religion. Some archaeoastronomers propose that its gaze may have originally corresponded with the constellation Leo during the precession of the equinoxes, a phenomenon that would place its alignment tens of thousands of years ago. Whether or not this precise alignment was intentional, it suggests that the builders were acutely aware of celestial patterns and sought to embed astronomical knowledge within the monument itself. The Sphinx thus functions as a marker of cosmic order, a physical representation of the sun's daily and yearly cycles, and a link between humanity and the divine. Beyond facial features and orientation, subtle details in the Sphinx's design carry symbolic weight. The paws, extended forward in a protective stance, suggest vigilance and guardianship, emphasizing the role of the monument as a sentinel over the pyramids and temples. The dream stele, erected between the paws by Pharaoh Thutmose IV, adds another layer of meaning, a narrative of divine guidance, kingship, and restoration, reinforcing the Sphinx's spiritual and political significance. Even the erosion patterns, often seen as damage, may in fact enhance its symbolic ambiguity, presenting a figure that is simultaneously eternal and vulnerable, majestic yet subject to the forces of time and nature. The alignment with sacred architecture is also noteworthy. The Sphinx's positioning relative to the pyramids, the Nile, and surrounding temples creates a spatial relationship that is both functional and symbolic. It frames processional routes, channels sunlight onto ritual spaces, and integrates with the ceremonial landscape in a way that transforms the plateau into a living theater of power and devotion. Each movement of the sun, each reflection of light and shadow across the stone, would have reinforced the monument's symbolism during religious festivals, making it a dynamic participant in the spiritual life of the ancient Egyptians. Some theorists suggest that even the head-to-body ratio of the Sphinx carries encoded knowledge. Its dimensions, when compared to human measurements and the proportions of other sacred monuments, imply an understanding of scale and harmony that goes beyond mere artistic representation. These ratios may have been designed to evoke psychological responses in observers, inspiring awe and respect while communicating subtle truths about cosmic order, the pharaoh's divine mandate, and the interconnection of earthly and celestial realms. The Sphinx becomes a vessel for knowledge that is both visual and intuitive, accessible to the initiated yet mysterious to casual observers. The use of symbolism extends to material choice as well. Carved from the local limestone of the Giza Plateau, the Sphinx reflects not only the practical availability of stone but also the ancient Egyptians' understanding of durability and environment. The varying hardness of the limestone layers may have influenced the erosion patterns we see today, but originally, the selection and carving would have been carefully considered to convey permanence, stability, and reverence. Even the monument scale, stretching over 70 meters in length and 20 meters in height, speaks to a desire to impress, protect, and communicate authority across generations. Ultimately, the hidden symbolism in the Sphinx's design reinforces its status as more than a statue. It is a confluence of intellect, power, cosmology, and devotion. Every feature, the face, the body, the orientation, and the proportions functions as a language, one that communicates across millennia. Its silent gaze challenges observers to interpret, to understand, and to consider humanity's place in the universe. The Sphinx's design encodes principles that blend the practical with the spiritual, the earthly with the celestial, and the human with the divine. In this sense, it is not merely a monument. It is a lesson in perception, a testament to ingenuity, and a riddle of enduring power. Even today, as scientists, historians, and enthusiasts analyze its geometry and alignment, the Sphinx retains an aura of mystery. Its hidden symbolism continues to invite inquiry, bridging the gap between ancient understanding and modern curiosity. Each measurement, observation, and interpretation deepens our appreciation of its sophistication, revealing a monument designed to inspire awe, provoke thought, and embody the eternal interplay between humans, the cosmos, and the divine forces that shaped both. The question of the Sphinx's erosion has long captivated scientists, archaeologists, and enthusiasts, and it remains one of the most compelling mysteries surrounding this ancient monument. Unlike many other Egyptian structures carved from the more resilient stone of the pyramids, the Sphinx is carved from softer, locally quarried limestone, making it particularly susceptible to weathering. Yet the patterns of erosion on its body, head, and surrounding enclosure have sparked a debate that touches on the very age of the monument, the climatic history of the region, and the possibility that ancient civilizations possessed knowledge now lost to time. For centuries, the Sphinx appeared to be half buried in sand, its body slowly revealed only by the persistence of explorers and archaeologists. Even after modern excavations in the 19th and 20th centuries, erosion remained a defining characteristic. Horizontal and vertical fissures, cavities, and rounded contours cover the monument, prompting questions about whether the damage was purely due to wind and sand or whether other forces were at work. Traditional Egyptologists often attribute the erosion primarily to aeolian processes, wind-driven sand, occasional rain, and extreme temperature fluctuations in the desert environment. Over millennia, these factors would have sculpted the monument gradually, wearing down its limestone and rounding its edges. However, a provocative theory emerged in the late 20th century with the work of geologist Robert Schoch. Schoch observed that many of the Sphinx's erosion patterns, particularly deep vertical fissures along its body and enclosure walls, seemed more consistent with prolonged exposure to water rather than wind or sand alone. Heavy rainfall and the infiltration of groundwater could produce the type of vertical erosion visible today, he argued. If accurate, this would suggest that the Sphinx was exposed to significant precipitation at some point in its history, raising the possibility that it predates the 4th dynasty of Egypt, around 2500 BCE, by several millennia. Some proponents of this idea suggest an origin as early as 700 to 5000 BCE, a period when the Sahara was far wetter and subject to seasonal flooding. This water erosion hypothesis challenges conventional Egyptology and has sparked intense debate. Critics argue that the erosion could be explained by other factors, such as the natural properties of the limestone, localized flooding from the Nile, or even restoration and excavation damage over the centuries. Furthermore, dating the Sphinx based on erosion patterns alone is problematic because it requires assumptions about ancient climate, the chemical composition of the stone, and the historical distribution of rain. Nonetheless, Schoch's observations have prompted many researchers to reconsider the conventional timeline, fueling speculation that ancient Egypt may have inherited a legacy from earlier, sophisticated civilizations. Complicating matters further are studies of the surrounding enclosure. The walls that frame the Sphinx exhibit erosion patterns that are strikingly similar to those on the monument itself, supporting the idea that water, rather than wind alone, played a significant role. Some researchers point out that the orientation of the Sphinx and the composition of the limestone layers make it particularly vulnerable to vertical runoff, suggesting that its original builders may have faced significant engineering challenges in carving and preserving such a massive monument. Others argue that ancient floodwaters or rising groundwater could have accentuated natural weaknesses in the stone, creating the deep channels and rounded contours observed today. Climate history plays a critical role in this debate. Geological studies indicate that the Sahara was not always the arid desert we know today. During the Neolithic period, roughly 10,000 to 5,000 years ago, the region experienced a much wetter climate with rivers, lakes, and seasonal rainfall. If the Sphinx was carved during this period, the water erosion patterns would be consistent with natural precipitation and runoff. Conversely, if the conventional dating is correct, the monument would have been carved after the desert had largely stabilized, and water erosion would be far less likely, suggesting alternative explanations such as chemical weathering, human activity, or later flooding events. In addition to water, wind and sand continue to play a role in the Sphinx's erosion. The desert environment is harsh and unforgiving. Strong winds carry sand particles that act like sandpaper against the limestone, gradually smoothing surfaces and accentuating fissures. Temperature fluctuations between scorching days and freezing nights induce thermal stress, causing stone to expand and contract, eventually leading to cracking and flaking. The combination of wind, sand, sun, and occasional rainfall creates a complex matrix of erosive forces, making it challenging to isolate any single factor as the definitive cause. Human activity has also contributed to erosion and damage. Early excavations, restoration attempts, and even graffiti left by travelers centuries ago have left traces on the Sphinx and its enclosure. While modern archaeologists strive to mitigate further damage, the centuries of human interaction with the monument have compounded natural erosion, complicating efforts to understand its original condition. These interventions illustrate a broader theme in the Sphinx's history: the intersection of natural forces and human curiosity, both of which shape the monument's present appearance. The debate over the Sphinx's age and erosion is more than academic. It touches on fundamental questions about human history, the development of civilization, and the continuity of knowledge. If the monument is older than traditionally believed, it would suggest that early humans possessed sophisticated engineering and astronomical understanding long before conventional timelines allow. This possibility has fueled alternative theories linking the Sphinx to lost civilizations, pre-dynastic builders, or even unknown cultural achievements erased by time and environment. Yet, despite all the theories and studies, the Sphinx retains an aura of mystery. Its erosion, whether caused by wind, water, or both, emphasizes the monument's vulnerability and endurance simultaneously. It is a reminder that even the most imposing creations are subject to the forces of nature, and that history itself is layered, sometimes obscured, and always open to interpretation. The fissures and weathered surfaces serve as a silent record of time, chronicling millennia of environmental change, human interaction, and the passage of civilizations that have risen and fallen around it. Ultimately, the erosion mystery highlights the Sphinx's dual nature. It is both a scientific enigma and a cultural icon. Each fissure, crack, and channel invites inquiry, prompting observers to consider the monument's history, construction, and meaning. Whether viewed through the lens of geology, archaeology, or speculative theory, the Sphinx challenges our assumptions and demands a closer look at the past. Its enduring presence reminds us that some questions about time, climate, and human achievement may never be fully answered, yet the pursuit of understanding itself deepens our connection to history and to the ancient world. The astronomical significance of the Sphinx is one of the most compelling aspects of its design, suggesting that the monument was conceived not only as a guardian of sacred space but as a cosmic marker, linking the terrestrial with the celestial. Its orientation, alignment, and possible correlations with constellations and solar phenomena reveal an advanced understanding of astronomy, precision engineering, and symbolism that continues to fascinate scholars and enthusiasts alike. The Sphinx is not merely a static monument carved in limestone. It is a monument in dialogue with the sky, a stone witness to the movements of the sun, stars, and heavens over millennia. One of the most obvious astronomical alignments is the Sphinx's orientation toward the east, where it greets the rising sun every morning. This eastward gaze was likely intentional, connecting the monument to solar worship and the daily cycle of life and renewal. In ancient Egyptian cosmology, the sun was a primary deity, often embodied as Ra, the solar god, whose journey across the sky symbolized creation, death, and rebirth. By facing east, the Sphinx would catch the first light of dawn, its features illuminated in a way that may have reinforced its role as a guardian and spiritual intermediary. Ceremonies conducted in front of the monument would have coincided with these daily solar events, enhancing its sacred significance. Beyond the daily movement of the sun, some researchers suggest that the Sphinx's orientation may have corresponded to specific celestial events or constellations at the time of its construction. The most frequently cited theory involves the constellation Leo, a celestial lion. During the precession of the equinoxes, roughly 10,000 years ago, the rising sun at the vernal equinox would have appeared in the constellation Leo, directly aligning with the Sphinx's gaze. If this alignment was intentional, it implies a profound understanding of long-term astronomical cycles, suggesting that the monument was designed to reflect cosmic order on a grand scale. In this interpretation, the Sphinx is not just a terrestrial symbol but a mirror of the heavens, embodying the power of the sun and the lion simultaneously. Solar phenomena also played a role in ritual practice and religious symbolism. Festivals such as the Opet festival and the said Jubilee involved processions and ceremonies timed to coincide with solar cycles, creating moments when the Sphinx would have been bathed in sunlight at precise angles. Shadows cast across its paws and chest may have been interpreted as signs from the gods, while the interplay of light and shadow enhanced the monument's sense of mystery and divine presence. In this way, the Sphinx functions as a temporal marker, integrating astronomical observation into spiritual and political life. Some researchers have explored potential lunar and stellar alignments as well. While less documented than solar correlations, the Sphinx may have been positioned to interact symbolically with the cycles of the moon, the rising and setting of specific stars, or even the Milky Way. Ancient Egyptians were keen observers of the night sky, recording star patterns for agricultural, religious, and ritual purposes. Aligning monuments with celestial bodies reinforced the connection between human activity and cosmic order, emphasizing that the pharaoh's power was sanctioned by the heavens. The Sphinx, in this context, is not only a guardian of earthly space but a mediator between cosmic and terrestrial domains. The surrounding Giza plateau amplifies the astronomical significance of the Sphinx. The monument is part of a larger network of pyramids, temples, and causeways, many of which exhibit alignments with cardinal points and celestial phenomena. The Great Pyramid of Khufu, for instance, is aligned almost perfectly with true north, while the pyramids of Khafre and Menkaure are positioned to reflect solar and stellar observations. The Sphinx sits at the eastern threshold of this complex, linking the plateau's monumental architecture to the movements of the sun and possibly the stars. This integration suggests that the Sphinx's placement was deliberate, a key element in a cosmically oriented sacred landscape. Archaeoastronomy also considers the implications of time and precession in interpreting the Sphinx's alignments. Because the Earth's axis wobbles over a cycle of approximately 26,000 years, the position of stars shifts gradually over millennia. This means that alignments observed today may differ from those in the distant past, and researchers must calculate backwards to understand potential astronomical correlations at the time of the Sphinx's construction. Proponents of an older Sphinx, dating it to 700 to 5000 BCE, argue that its alignment with Leo at the vernal equinox is compelling evidence for a far earlier origin than traditionally accepted. Critics, however, caution that such correlations, while intriguing, cannot definitively establish dating without corroborating archaeological evidence. In addition to specific alignments, the Sphinx may encode broader cosmic principles through its proportions and design. Its head-to-body ratio, overall scale, and spatial positioning relative to surrounding monuments reflect principles of sacred geometry, which often correspond to astronomical phenomena. The combination of scale, proportion, and orientation creates a monument that functions as a cosmic marker, a statement of human understanding of universal laws, and a visual representation of divine order. Observers, whether priests, pharaohs, or visitors, would have perceived the Sphinx not only as a guardian or king but as an embodiment of the heavens, a physical interface between humanity and the cosmos. The interaction of the Sphinx with sunlight and shadow throughout the day also has symbolic implications. As the sun rises and moves across the sky, different features of the monument are illuminated, emphasizing the interplay between light and darkness. In Egyptian belief, such cycles reflect the eternal struggle between order and chaos, life and death. By incorporating these temporal dynamics into its design, the Sphinx becomes a dynamic monument, engaging observers in a narrative that unfolds across time, connecting human experience with celestial rhythms. Ultimately, the Sphinx's astronomical alignments reinforce its role as a symbol of power, protection, and cosmic harmony. Whether viewed through the lens of solar worship, stellar observation, or sacred geometry, the monument demonstrates an extraordinary awareness of the heavens. It embodies a civilization's understanding that the forces governing the cosmos are intertwined with human governance, religion, and ritual practice. The Sphinx is thus both stone and sky, earth and universe, a silent sentinel that gazes not only across the desert but across the celestial tapestry, connecting the ephemeral life of humans with the eternal rhythms of the cosmos. Even today, as scholars continue to study its alignment, the Sphinx challenges our understanding of ancient knowledge. Its gaze, fixed on the horizon, serves as a reminder that humans have long sought to interpret the heavens, to find meaning in the movements of stars and sun, and to embed that understanding in monuments that endure for millennia. The astronomical dimension of the Sphinx adds yet another layer to its mystery, ensuring that it remains a bridge between past and present, earth and sky, human curiosity and cosmic wonder. The influence of the Sphinx extended far beyond ancient Egypt, resonating through centuries of human imagination, interpretation, and cultural adoption. As travelers, scholars, and conquerors encountered the monument, it became a symbol that transcended its original religious and political purpose, inspiring myth, art, literature, and philosophy across civilizations. The Sphinx's enigmatic presence and iconic form allowed it to be reinterpreted according to the values, beliefs, and artistic sensibilities of each era, demonstrating its enduring power as a cultural and symbolic force. The Greeks were among the first to reinterpret the Sphinx in ways that extended beyond its original Egyptian context. Encountering the monumental sculpture centuries after the decline of the Old Kingdom, Greek travelers and historians were fascinated by its form and the mythology surrounding it. The Sphinx inspired the Greek myth of a winged, human-headed lioness who posed riddles to travelers, most famously in the story of Oedipus. In Greek storytelling, the Sphinx became a figure of mystery, danger, and intellectual challenge, a guardian of secrets that tested human wit. This mythologization illustrates how the Sphinx's physical presence was transformed into a moral and philosophical symbol, emphasizing human confrontation with the unknown, the interplay of intellect and enigma, and the consequences of curiosity. Roman interpretations of the Sphinx further expanded its symbolic reach. Roman elites admired Egyptian culture and incorporated elements into architecture, art, and religion, seeing in the Sphinx a representation of timeless wisdom and authority. Romans created smaller replicas and incorporated Sphinx motifs into temples, gardens, and decorative objects, linking the image to imperial power and the mysteries of the East. In these interpretations, the Sphinx symbolized a bridge between the familiar and the exotic, embodying both fascination with Egypt and the projection of Roman ideals onto ancient symbols. Its presence in Roman art also helped preserve the idea of the Sphinx in the Western imagination, ensuring that its enigmatic symbolism endured long after the political structures of Egypt itself had changed. During the Islamic period, the Sphinx continued to be a subject of curiosity, although its original religious significance was largely reinterpreted through the lens of new cultural and historical frameworks. Arab historians and travelers documented the monument, noting its colossal size, mysterious visage, and the legends associated with its nose and paws. These accounts emphasize the wonder of the Sphinx rather than its ritual or political role, framing it as a marvel of ancient engineering and a testament to the grandeur of previous civilizations. The narrative of the missing nose, which has been romanticized and mythologized in multiple cultural accounts, became a focal point of intrigue and speculation, further enhancing its mystique in Islamic and later European scholarship. The Renaissance and Enlightenment periods brought a revival of interest in classical and ancient knowledge, and the Sphinx became a subject for artists, explorers, and intellectuals seeking to understand the achievements of the ancient world. European travelers and artists, inspired by the Greek and Roman accounts, documented the Sphinx through sketches, paintings, and written descriptions. These interpretations emphasized both aesthetic admiration and the mystery of the monument, highlighting the duality of human intelligence and natural force that the Sphinx embodied. Its image became a motif for artistic exploration, symbolizing endurance, mystery, and the grandeur of civilizations long past. In literature, the Sphinx inspired countless narratives exploring themes of knowledge, power, and human curiosity. Poets, novelists, and essayists have drawn on its form to evoke the tension between the known and unknown, the mortal and divine. In Western literature, the Sphinx often serves as a metaphor for riddles, hidden truths, and the challenge of understanding history itself. Its human-lion hybrid form allows writers to explore duality, combining intellect with instinct, civilization with nature, and the eternal with the temporal. The enduring appeal of these literary interpretations lies in their ability to translate the monument's physical presence into moral, philosophical, and imaginative discourse. Artistic representations across cultures also reflect the Sphinx's symbolic versatility. Sculptors, painters, and architects have borrowed its form to convey strength, guardianship, and wisdom. In many cases, these adaptations have blended cultural motifs, merging Egyptian symbolism with local traditions to create hybrid artistic expressions. The Sphinx's image appears in European cathedrals, museum collections, and public monuments, demonstrating its continued relevance as a symbol that transcends geographic and temporal boundaries. It has become a visual shorthand for mystery, power, and endurance, easily recognized and reinterpreted across artistic traditions. The Sphinx also influenced esoteric thought and philosophical interpretations. Scholars and mystics have long associated the monument with hidden knowledge, cosmic order, and spiritual insight. In Renaissance occultism, the Sphinx was linked to Hermetic principles and the pursuit of wisdom, while later philosophers drew on its image to symbolize the intersection of intellect and instinct, reason and enigma. Its enduring presence in esoteric traditions underscores the human fascination with the unknown and the desire to derive meaning from symbols that appear to bridge the earthly and the divine. In modern times, the Sphinx continues to inspire, not only as a cultural symbol, but as a lens through which civilizations interpret the past. Its influence on Western imagination, media, and tourism illustrates its ability to transcend its original context while retaining its aura of mystery. Educational programs, films, documentaries, and virtual experiences allow audiences worldwide to engage with the monument, reinforcing its symbolic significance and maintaining its role as a cultural touchstone. The Sphinx remains a mediator between human curiosity and the enduring enigmas of history, embodying a continuity of fascination that spans millennia. Ultimately, the Sphinx's influence on later civilizations highlights its adaptability as a symbol. Each culture, from Greek to Roman to Islamic and beyond, has interpreted it through its own lens, emphasizing aspects that resonated with contemporary values, beliefs, and aesthetic preferences. Its form, enigmatic gaze, and hybrid nature provide endless interpretive possibilities, allowing it to serve as a guardian, a riddle, a moral challenge, or a symbol of wisdom and endurance. The Sphinx's enduring presence in art, literature, and scholarship attests to its unique ability to inspire awe, provoke thought, and transcend the boundaries of time, culture, and geography. In every era, the Sphinx has functioned as a bridge between the ancient and the modern, the known and unknown, the human and divine. Its influence on later civilizations ensures that it is not only a relic of Egypt's past, but also a living symbol in the collective consciousness of humanity. Its enigmatic gaze continues to invite interpretation, challenging each observer to contemplate the mysteries it has silently witnessed for thousands of years, and inspiring the imagination of countless generations in ways both tangible and transcendent. Modern preservation of the Sphinx is a delicate and ongoing challenge, balancing the need to protect an ancient monument with the realities of environmental decay and human impact. Centuries of wind, sand, and temperature fluctuations have left deep fissures and weakened limestone, while tourism and pollution exacerbate its vulnerability. Restoration efforts, which began in earnest in the 20th century, have included reinforcing the pause, repairing eroded sections, and stabilizing the surrounding enclosure. Archaeologists and engineers employ both traditional materials and modern technology, from laser scanning to 3D modeling, to guide interventions without compromising authenticity. Ethical considerations are central to these efforts. Restorers must decide how much to reconstruct versus preserve in its weathered state, striving to maintain historical integrity while preventing further loss. Controversy has arisen over previous restorations that used incompatible materials or altered original features, emphasizing the importance of careful, evidence-based preservation. Additionally, climate change and groundwater fluctuations pose new threats, requiring adaptive strategies and continuous monitoring. The Sphinx's preservation is therefore not a single project but a commitment across generations, reflecting humanity's responsibility to safeguard a symbol of cultural heritage, cosmic mystery, and enduring historical significance. The Sphinx has captured the imagination of modern culture, appearing in films, novels, video games, and documentaries as a symbol of mystery, power, and ancient wisdom. Its enigmatic visage inspires stories of hidden chambers, secret knowledge, and lost civilizations, blending historical fact with myth. In literature and media, it often serves as a riddle, a guardian, or a cosmic messenger, bridging past and present. From Hollywood blockbusters to speculative documentaries, the Sphinx continues to fascinate, reminding audiences of humanity's enduring fascination with the unknown and our desire to uncover secrets that have survived millennia in stone, shadow, and imagination. The Sphinx stands as a silent witness to millennia, its gaze bridging the past and present, the earthly and cosmic. It embodies human ingenuity, spiritual devotion, and the mysteries that continue to elude full understanding. From its role in ancient rituals to its influence on mythology, art, and modern media, the monument invites awe, curiosity, and reflection. It challenges us to ponder lost knowledge, the passage of time, and humanity's place in the cosmos. Perhaps its greatest gift is the reminder that some mysteries endure, urging us to question, explore, and imagine, leaving a legacy that transcends history itself.